Alright, what's up everybody? How's it going? Welcome to another episode of Uncensored. Ooh, we have echoes going on here. Welcome to another episode of Uncensored. Let's see where is that source coming from. Welcome to another episode of Uncensored. Let's see where is that. Ooh man, listen to this. It is doing like some crazy loop right now. Ooh man, listen to this. Okay, there's one source of it. I think that's all I have. All right, there we go. Man. Okay. We good. All right, let's start over again here. Welcome to another episode of Uncensored. I am James Chen, here on the Chen Dynasty, a.k.a. twitch.tv/jchensor. Hope everyone's doing good this Wednesday afternoon. If you are unfamiliar with Uncensored, it is basically just an episode where I get to talk about various topics at length, largely through rants and through things that I feel particularly passionate about. And I will have an attempt to use, I will definitely not hold back, I guess, on language, although maybe I should try because of all the stupid new YouTube ad policies, which I could have a whole Uncensored rant about already myself, because apparently they're like finding content unsuitable, and all of a sudden that like messes up a whole bunch of stuff. So where is this? There we go. Okay, but what we're actually going to talk about today, you can see right here at the top of the screen right there, it is mechanics versus strategy and dispelling the myth that revolves around combos, right? So here's the thing, right? The reason why I'm bringing this up is because someone actually brought to my attention this really fairly recent video from Day9. Sean Plott, a.k.a. Sean Plott. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Day9. You probably should be if you are familiar with anything that has to do with esports. But Day9 is basically one of the earliest and most prolific teachers of StarCraft, a strong player himself, a commentator of StarCraft, but he runs Day9TV. He's the main host of there, and he is basically probably one of the greatest StarCraft teachers of all time. And largely, actually, Day9 is kind of like something that I aspire to be. I would like to be, you know, the Day9 of Street Fighter, as they would call it. I've met him before. He's a very cool guy and very smart and very, very wise in the way that he teaches things. Now, someone actually sent me a video that he had recently. So, StarCraft Remastered is something that just came out recently. And before that came out, sometime around April, Day9 had a video where he talked about StarCraft Remastered, which is essentially Brood War Remastered. And he talked about a really important topic about mechanics versus strategy. And how there's this kind of prevailing theory that StarCraft is like a complete strategy game, and that, you know, the mechanics of organizing your units and you know, commanding on how to control everything is just a mechanic. It's just kind of this thing that's in the way of getting to the strategy. And this probably actually sounds very familiar, and the reason why this video spoke volumes to me is because it felt like it applied so well to all the stuff that I hear about fighting games, and how fighting games, basically there's this perception that somehow mechanics, combos, execution, that kind of thing is getting in the way of allowing people to get to the strategy of the fighting game. And so, basically, I mean, if I could really have my choice right now, I would just take Day9's video and just play it straight through. It's 11 minutes long. I would just play it, let you guys listen to it, and then just basically I would applaud, and then I would end the episode. However, what I do want to do instead, though, is I'm going to go ahead and play the video, and but I'm going to stop it. I'm going to pause it from time to time, and just talk about how it relates to fighting games instead. So, Yeah, he's definitely done other stuff as well. He's done some League of Legends stuff. He's been doing some Hearthstone stuff as well recently. But let us here. Let me get to this over here. Let us bring up our friend Day9. Hey, look at there, a.k.a. Sean Plott. You can always check out all of his stuff at youtube.com/user/Day9TV. But there he is, right there. There's this video from him. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to basically play this video and just kind of pause it every once in a while and just talk about how it relates to fighting games and kind of expand on some of the concepts, because I know there's going to be some parts where people are like, wait a second, I don't agree with this at all. So I want to talk about this. And mainly, yes, this is going to be another episode here of me kind of talking about why execution is so important to fighting games. And I know that this is a very common theme of mine, but you can definitely tell this is something that I'm very, very passionate about and very, very much, you know, a strong belief of mine that, you know, I know a lot of people want to make fighting games as easy execution-wise as possible, and I think that that is a problem, and I think that that is a false thing for people. And yeah, I did actually did tweet out the video, the Day9 video here on my Twitter, which you can find at @JChensor. So here we go. And yeah, I mean, someone in the chat just said you don't need execution when you play Street Fighter V, and that's absolutely one of the biggest issues with Street Fighter V, and I will talk about that a lot. I will talk about why Street Fighter V suffers because there's lack of execution in there. And, you know, you know, a middle ground, you know, Solzhen actually mentions that there's a middle ground that's needed. I'm not actually sure that's true. I think that different games can solve the different things, and I'll talk about that later on as well with regards to games like Rising Thunder and Fantasy Strike and such. But let's go ahead and start this video here. I'm going to play this video here. And like I said, we're basically just going to listen to the video. Let me know how the volume of the video is. Hopefully it's okay. But I'm just going to play it and stop it every once in a while. He's going to be talking about this completely from a StarCraft perspective. So I'm going, like I said, I'm going to take the things that he says and kind of, you know, talk about how it relates to fighting games. So let's take a listen to this really quick. Let's take a listen to this.
StarCraft Brood War is primarily not a strategy game. Primarily not a strategy game. It is secondarily a strategy game.
All right, so let's start here. Let's just start right here because this is such an important thing to establish for one of his themes here. He is talking, StarCraft is one of those games that people talk about the strategy of, and it's like, oh, this is a strategic game, etc., etc. And right off the bat, he already talks about how StarCraft is not primarily a strategy game. All right, so he's already said that from the get-go. Let's take a listen to let's listen how he expands on this topic a little bit.
Primarily, StarCraft emphasizes the real-time aspect, the idea of how difficult it is to juggle all the things that one must juggle to be a commander. It is a game that perfectly embodies the commander fantasy. Both that you are the commander and you get to do everything, but also that it's hard to do.
All right, so what he's talking about here is that, you know, one of the key elements in real-time strategy games is that a lot of the times you have a lot of units to control, and it's very, very difficult to maintain a lot of this stuff, right? And this applies to fighting games so much because fighting games, yes, are largely about the strategy, but then there's also this control element into it. And the way that I always summarize this point here is that we're playing video games. And video games have always been about this kind of control, right? It has always been about this. And that if you want a game that's pure strategy, there are other avenues, right? But to me, video games are largely about the control. When you watch something like AGDQ or SGDQ, the games done quick marathons, the things that make them great is because we're playing video games and it requires skill and manual dexterity to play video games. And I think that is a key component of video games, and I do not think that that should be removed from video games unless it's specifically designed to be something like that, like you're playing a historical simulation game, right? Or something that's turn-based, for example, then it's kind of important. Shout-outs to Boats and Joes for the continued subscription to the Chen Dynasty. But let's keep going with this.
And all the difficulties associated with that. And the analogy I like to use is that football, American football, good old Sunday, we're going to get together with 8 families, have a barbecue, and watch American football. The Super Bowl's coming soon. Cancel everything. I got to watch sports.
Of course, this is going into dangerous territory here when we make analogies to sports, but stick with it for a second.
American football has lots of strategy in it, tons of strategy, but if you go on the field and you are a strategic mastermind, but you weigh 90 pounds, you're going to die. Doesn't matter, because football primarily is a game that demands that you are physically fit, and secondarily, you get to do all this other stuff. And it's not like primarily this and secondarily way that. I mean, they're really close. There's a lot of strategy and real-time management that happens in StarCraft. Both of them exist, but too often when you talk...
Okay. So while we go into this, a little bit later, I'll expand on the sports analogy just a little bit, because I know there's going to be a lot of people out there that, are basically saying, look, we play video games because we can't play sports. This is a terrible analogy. That's why we hate sports. It's because you have to have this physical requirement, whereas video games are open to everyone. The main point that I want to get from this particular section right here, however, is the fact that yes, I'm talking about execution and strategy in fighting games, and there is this level of execution that you're going to have to master to be good at fighting games. But, strategy and execution, in my opinion, go hand in hand. I really like the fact that, Sean here, Day9, is emphasizing that the physicality of something like football and in StarCraft is very key with strategy. It's not like strategy is here and the other physical component is here, or the execution part is over here and the strategy is down here. In both of the games, they're kind of on an equal level ground. This is actually really important. This is what I believe in fighting games. I feel like so much of fighting games is inherently execution, and there's almost nothing you can do about that, because there's just going to be this control factor in there. And I'm going to talk about this in the second half of the video as well, because the execution in video games is also so much easier than anything that we have to handle in the physical, like in a physical sport world, right? So and I'm going to talk about that. That's what the second half of over here, dispelling the myth of combos. I've ranted about this on several streams before when I'm streaming other fighting games and stuff like that, but I'm going to take it and put it in one cohesive place, and that is this episode of Uncensored right here. So some people are going to hear some stuff that sounds like it might be repeating, but it is very important to talk about combos and really kind of debunking the myth of combos. But let's keep going here with this.
Talk to someone who has played a strategy game before. They talk all about how the strategy needs to be the big thing. Well, I watched him build a scissors unit, so then therefore I should have all the time I need to build a rock unit. Isn't that interesting? Oh, it's comparatively interesting to rock, paper, scissors, which has some merit there, but what makes StarCraft Brood War so cool is that it is so hard to tell anything to do anything easily. You can only select 12 units at a time. And if you're Zerg, you really quickly wind up with 48 Zerglings. Like sub 50 supply, you just have 48 Zerglings. Ugh.
All right, so here's the thing, right? He's sitting here talking about basically how hard it is to do a lot of these things. And, the merit of pretty much anything competitive usually comes down to how difficult it is to do a lot of things, right? And you're going to have varying degrees of a whole bunch of different elements. So, for example, in a physical sport, a lot of the times, like something decathlon, it really is just physical. There's very little strategy involved in decathlon. So that is a celebration of absolute physicality, right? And a lot of games like sports, like basketball, like football, there is definitely the physicality element, and there is also the strategy element. In StarCraft, for example, he's talking about the same thing, physicality and strategy element. Then you have something on the opposite end of that. You have games like chess. You have games like, for example, poker, right? Poker has no physicality in it. It's all just mental strategy, probability, and understanding people's psychology and everything like that. So one of the things that I will say about video games and fighting games is that I don't think that, fighting games have to have execution to be good. I'm just saying that, in my opinion, execution is just a huge part of fighting games, and especially Street Fighter and a lot of the games that we already know. And the franchise of Street Fighter has been built upon years and years of this concept that there is this kind of execution in there. And I will get into some concrete examples in a little bit. Again, this video is 11 minutes long. I want to try to get through a lot of this so I can talk about these greater subjects at length. So let's keep going through this video and try to get through as much of this as possible. Yes, tennis analogy is a great analogy, Caramel Jenkins, because tennis is one of my favorite sports to watch. And tennis, there's so much strategy about tennis. Like, if you don't watch a lot of tennis, you do not understand how much strategy there is in tennis. Tennis is largely strategy, which is you have the court, and depending on where you are on the court, the angle of your shot changes drastically. If you're in the middle of the court, the angle, the width of your shot, and to still be able to stay in the court is about this limited. So you really, on the defensive side, don't have to worry so much about left or right mix-ups, basically, right? It's really about angles in tennis. The further you go to the edge, okay, so basically if you're standing here in the tennis court, your angle is only about like here, right? If you go to the edge, all of a sudden your angle for hitting the tennis ball gets about this wide. So now you have this much space that you can hit the ball, and now the opponent has to cover that much more space. This much more space because your angle is that much wider. Well, this is so weird that that's not a mirror, that I'm looking at a TV and it's reflection, not a mirror. But then, so that's why you'll see tennis players hit the ball towards the middle, because you're like, why are you not trying to hit it towards the edge to mess them up? You hit it towards the middle to kill the angle of your opponent's swing, so that now you have to decide, now you have less defensive area to cover. That's why coming to the net is important. When you come to the net, all of a sudden that angle that you have, which is only this wide, when you get closer to the net, you widen your angle again, right? So now you have more space for the opponent to have to cover. The reason why I bring this up is because tennis is largely about that strategy. It's conditioning them. You're hitting to the middle, you're hitting to the middle, you're hitting to the left, you're hitting to the left, all of a sudden to the right. There's so much strategy to tennis, but it requires that execution factor to be able to hit the ball exactly where you want it to and as close to the lines as possible. So there's this heavy element of strategy built along with the physicality. And that's how I look a lot of fighting games, right? A lot of fighting games, there is that strategy in there, but you have to add that kind of execution part of it into the game to kind of give it that extra drive, that extra area of practice, that extra area of something that you have to get good at. And I think that's very important. But in any case, ST does have high execution. Actually, ST has very, very high execution in a different way, in that the game was designed very long time ago, doesn't recognize inputs very well, has a lot of really weird things in there, like the Renda Kara cancels for Ken's crouching light kick. And, T-Hawk has the crazy OS that, you can only do if your execution is hella good. So yeah, ST is actually very, very high execution. Very high execution. So anyways, let's continue with the video. I'm getting distracted. I'm going into the topics earlier than I wanted to. I have all these notes, and I'm going to get to them, but I keep jumping the gun. Let's get back to the Day 9 video here. Let's go.
What do I do? How do I move them around? Well, since you can only select 12 at a time, you better figure out how to organize your hotkeys in order to do so. Well, shit, what if you have 100 units and you want to hotkey those, but then you also have 8 buildings back at home and you want to hotkey those for macro, but then you also have a whole bunch of scanner sweeps that you want to hotkey those in order to be able to spot what's going on the map, but you also have your command centers that you want to be building SCVs out of, but then you also have a drop that you're trying to send around the map. How the hell do I organize all this? It's not that the game should be made easier so that you get to do the strategy. This is the equivalent of...
All right. Key sentence. key sentence. I love it. I love it. It's not that the game should be made easier so that you can get to the strategy. Okay, he's going to expand on this in just a little bit, but keep that in mind right there. That is such an important concept to understand, right? Because, again, the reason why this is entitled Mechanics versus Strategy, he'll talk about this in a little bit, is that mechanics are every much a part of the game as the strategy. So by trying to dumb the game down mechanically, you're kind of screwing with the game, because the game is not just about strategy. If you dumb down the game execution-wise, you're actually hurting the game. You are literally hurting the game, as opposed to, hey, we just want to get rid of this part so that all of a sudden you can get to the strategy. He's going to go into that right now.
We need to figure out how to get physical health out of football. We want to have no physical health. We want it to just be about the decisions that happen. And that's how we're going to make good football. Golf shouldn't be about how accurately you can swing that club. It shouldn't be about that. It should be about the strategy of how you're hitting the ball in what location. So we're going to build a golf machine that hits the ball perfectly every time. Anyone who's played in the other sports is just like, no, that's a terrible idea. And I'd go, yeah, no, totally agree.
All right, so again, let's go back to this sports analogy. I really, really want to address this, because a lot of people are going to be like, James, that is a terrible analogy. Day9 doesn't know what he's talking about. The reason why we play video games is because we aren't physical enough to play sports. I can't play sports, right? If I play sports, like he said, I would die, right? Because I don't have the physicality to play sports. So that's why we play video games. So why are we putting this weird, crazy physical requirement onto our video games? This is something that we should have that's just strategy. This is just a strategy game. This is just something that I should implement I should just be able to sit down and play it, and I should be able to do everything that I want to in this game. And you know what? I mean, the thing about it is nothing works that way, right? Nothing works that way. And it's like I said, the hardest thing about video games is that video games oftentimes, in general, trick us into thinking that we aren't doing something physical, right? Basically, video games are good at making you more powerful as you go and easing you into practice. That's just how video games work. I like to bring up games like God of War, right? God of War is like, God, I love that game. Like the first God of War, second God of War is amazing games, super fun games. And seriously, by the end of it, you are just brutalizing monsters like you can't even possibly imagine, right? But that's because you're playing this game for a long period of time, right? You don't realize the kind of execution and strategy that you're building up in your fingers. But also at the same time, the game also gives you more life. They give you more moves. You get moves one at a time, so you learn how to implement the moves in the game. All these games that you play, there's this progression. You get stronger as you go, right? You don't realize that the entire time you're playing this video game from level 1 to level 7, by the time you get to the last level 8, for example, you have put in probably about like 40 hours of practice for long games, right? 20 hours of practice, 12 hours of practice. Regardless, by the time you get there, the game has done a good job teaching you how to play the game. So while you're sitting there thinking to yourself, well, see, when I play these games, I'm just really smart. I know how to fight the bad guys. I know how to do all this stuff. It took you a while to learn the mechanics in that game. I mean, nothing is more evident than that to me when I went from Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 2. They moved to the jump button location, and all of a sudden I can't play the game because every time I try to jump, I bring up the map. Like, that's how much the games, teach you how to do things. You get this muscle memory built in there, and you start doing everything automatic. The funny thing is, with fighting games, a lot of the times you're thrust into it right away. There's no progression. Nobody teaches you anything. And so you're just kind of put in this position. So there's this perception that it's unfair to you because you have to learn all this stuff. And you're like, I'm good at video games. I shouldn't have to I can beat all these other games. I shouldn't have to have this physical component that I'm trying to learn all these things. And so the sports analogy isn't necessarily about the physicality of the games. It's about the amount of effort and practice that you have to put in to be good at something. You know, you really do have to put in the effort that you... I mean, like someone in the chat right here says he misses having trials that he couldn't do. Like King of Fighters 14 trials are like brain dead easy compared to KOF 13 trials, and that's kind of disappointing in a way. It actually kind of makes things a little... Yeah, Souls games. Oh my God, Lamar, that's a great example right there. Souls games, oh God, it's like when you first play that game, you just get destroyed, right? I mean, when I'm sitting there playing Dark Souls, I was just getting bodied, and L.I. Joe is just sitting there watching me like, oh my God, and he could probably make it through those games in 2 seconds flat, right? But that's just because he understands the game now, and the game actually teaches you these kind of things. So that's basically where the analogy kind of comes into. Even when you're playing video games, you are practicing, you're developing skills. It's just that most of the time, one, you don't know you're developing it, and two, you're enjoying it while you're developing. That's the hardest thing about fighting games right now, is it's really hard to enjoy developing those skills, because fighting games do a terrible job of providing ways for you to learn in an entertaining way, right? Second thing I want to bring up about this analogy here is that the main thing that he's talking about here with this sports analogy is not that, you know, oh, there's this physical component that you have to deal with in everything. He's just talking about how, like, trying to take execution out of a strategy video game where there is this execution component is like trying to take the physicality out of football. There's this parallel here, is you're trying to remove something from an existing game that already has this element, and you're trying to remove it because you don't think it belongs there. So you're basically trying to remove the element that you feel like doesn't suit you. Like, I don't want to sit here and, like, talk shit to people who actually hate execution and want as little execution in fighting games as possible, but to be honest with you, you're trying to pull something out that you don't enjoy out of the fighting game and trying to gear it exactly towards your style. Fighting games, I should talk about this because this is something I want to talk about a little bit later on. But fighting games should be able to cater to a lot of different people. Now, of course, then the idea right here is like, hey, James, but you're talking about, you know, trying to keep execution in there, but, you know, taking it out suits, you know, our needs, but doesn't leaving execution in the game suit my need because I like execution? Aren't I being a hypocrite by saying the exact same thing, that I feel like execution should be in fighting games, and that's because I enjoy execution? Is something... I mean, I can't do a lot of things in fighting games. There's a ton of execution I'm not good at. I never got good at Viper Seismo feints. I could never play Dudley the way that Smug could. You know, in Guilty Gear, I certainly as hell can't play Zato. I don't know how to do eddy controls and things like that. And Tekken, I can barely Korean backdash. I can't sidestep very well. There's a lot of things I don't know how to do. In Injustice, I'm having trouble doing all sorts of things. But that's the thing, right? I go into there and I have trouble doing these things, and I know that if I want to get good at Zato, if I want to get good at Viper Seismo feints, if I want to get those, I'll put in the practice and I'll learn it. Right? But to me, that's just a part of the game. That's something that exists in fighting games. Something to practice. And in fact, in my opinion, that's what makes the games much stronger. Because there's just such a greater appreciation for when you see someone do something like that. There's that really, really, really great video out there. Probably my favorite Street Fighter 4 clip, which is the most unfortunate neutral jump of a Viper player ever versus Smug. And Viper neutral jumps, and Smug walks up and sweeps her with a crouching heavy kick, and then kills her. With the most ridiculous combos. He has full meter for it, and he kills her in the most ridiculous combo possible. And it's impressive to me because I can't do that. I can't do that. You know, but see, in my mind, I'm like, well, you know what? If I wanted to do that, I'll go and practice it. But to me, it was cool that he did that because I certainly can't do that right now. And it's super cool and it's super fun. And shout outs to Frame Data V once again. Of course, they've got their cool Frame Data app on the store, so definitely check that out for all your Street Fighter V frame data needs. So trying to see something. What the chat is saying right here. Okay. Anyways, yeah, I mean, look, honestly, a lot of it, I'm not going to talk shit, but I'm going to talk shit. But, I mean, like, I'm not trying to be negative about it, and that's what the whole second half of the video is going to be. Trust me, I'm going to help you guys with this. I'm going to help you guys with the execution aspect of fighting games, because there's a myth about the execution aspect of fighting games, and I really, really, really want to debunk this myth. I really want to debunk this myth, and it's holding a lot of people back, so... So someone saying you're missing is the gap between high execution and low execution would describe those in the FGC as minuscule compared to the perception of actual casuals and non-fighting game players who all struggle with quarter circle forward. I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to get. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. The gap between high execution and low execution. Shout outs to Uber Automation for the subscription. Much appreciated. Described by those as minuscule compared to the perception of actual casuals. Yeah, I'm actually even talking about actual casuals who have trouble trying to learn quarter circle forward and stuff like that. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of people who have learned it, and they just take the time to actually learn it. You can learn it. You can learn it, and you know, like I said, I really want to talk about that in the execution section in the second half of this whole entire thing. But in any case, the whole thing about Street Fighter is that, you know, you're trying to. Why is me not wanting execution in there not the same thing as me saying that people are being selfish by trying to take out the execution? It's because I'm not being selfish. It's because I can't do a lot of the things in these games. You know, it's not like I'm saying that this should only be it, because the strategy element needs to be there as well, and I'll get to that at the very end of this first half. I really want to talk about that as well. And, you know, I have all these notes. I have them in this specific order, but I keep jumping around back and forth. I apologize. So let's just keep going with the video down here. Let's keep going with the video down here.
It's the same thing with Brood War. There is this illusion that I want to break for you right now, that in Brood War, you need to be excellent at your mechanics before you begin to get to be able to do the strategy. There's this idea that if you practice for 3 months, you'll have your mechanics down, and then you get to play the strategy portion. This is totally false, for a number of different reasons. First of all, if you watch any fucking...
Okay, so whoops, that was a great time to stop. But yes, he is absolutely right. You know, a lot of people talk about this, that there is this concept that you have to get past the mechanics to get to the strategy. The thing about it is that in fighting games and with Brood War and with lots of games, the mechanics and the strategy are not mutually exclusive. One's not blocking the path to the other. They're both something that you're going to learn at the same time. You grow at the same time. And even when you're first learning the fighting games and you have trouble with the mechanics in the game, that doesn't mean you can't learn strategy at the same time. I've talked about this in many first attack videos. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, I got to learn these combos and whatever, blah, blah, blah. Whenever I teach fighting games, I always teach people, here is the basic B&B that you should start with. It's not going to be great damage, but who cares? And then I also teach people to find their pet moves, even if it's wrong. Even if it's the wrong move, just find the normal moves that you like to abuse. And I did this in Tekken as well. As soon as I started Tekken with King, I picked like 4 moves that I was going to abuse. And it turns out I was missing like the key moves, and some of the moves I chose were actually not very good. Doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter. Like I just started that way so that I could start learning the strategy of the game while I learn the mechanics of the game. You're learning both of these things at the same time. Mechanics is not a barrier to strategy. And that's the point that Day9 is trying to make in this video for StarCraft, but it applies to fighting games perfectly. Mechanics should not be viewed as a roadblock to understanding the strategy of fighting games. They are two facets of the same game that are equally as important as each other, and both should be learned. Does that make it harder for people to get into the game? Yes. Yes, absolutely. It's going to be harder for people to get into the game, but like I said, I think that's more of a fault of the fighting games themselves not doing a good job teaching everything. And that's because no fighting game has done it properly yet. There's a lot of fighting games out there like Skullgirls and KI and Guilty Gear that have these great tutorials and everything like that, but I still don't think that's the right way to do it. I honestly don't. I still think that there's better ways to teach people how to play fighting games. But the main takeaway at this point in time is that mechanics, strategy, not mutually exclusive, not one is in the way of the other. There are just different levels of strategy and mechanics, that you're going to learn in the game. So as a player, if this is mechanics and this is strategy, you might do this and all of a sudden become this really strategy and this really terrible mechanical person, or you can do this and you can be a great mechanical person and not be very good at strategy. But the thing is, both of them are still valid players in the game. Like, strategy is not what makes the best player over the guy who learns mechanics. Like, they're both valid players in the game. They both can play the game, and they both can succeed in the game. And that's the way that you have to view it. You cannot view it as two separate things. You cannot view it as one blocking that, like, strategy is the ultimate goal, and there's this mechanical roadblock sitting here in the way, and you've got to beat this thing out and get it out of the way, and now you can learn the strategy. No, you're learning mechanics, you're learning strategy at the same time. That is one of the key components of fighting games. Let's continue.
In pro play, literally, Flash, Jaedong, Bisu, Stork considered the 4 best players of all time, and I know someone on Team Liquid's like, what about fantasy? He gets a solid 5th, suck a fat one, fantasy. These are considered the 4 best players of all time, and when you watch them play, stuff is going wrong all the time. All the time stuff is going wrong. They're losing track of drop ships and missing macro back at home, and they have a geyser with one dude in it, and they forget to expand. Stuff's going wrong all the time because it's hard to be a commander. So if you're sitting there thinking, oh man, I can't wait to get good at the mechanics so that I can play StarCraft, I want you to know, you're playing StarCraft right now. Any skill you choose to get good at, mechanically speaking, good macro, excellent control of large numbers of units, which is a different skill than micro. Micro is another one. Really good building placement, managing your rallies, having reasonable expanding patterns, watching the minimap. If you get good at any one of these, you have a meaningful skill that will give you an edge over your opponents.
Yes, again, it's kind of what I was talking about here, right? And it's very crucial to note that this happens in fighting games too. Even at the highest levels, people are making mistakes in fighting games all the time. And if you guys watched the last episode of Uncensored where I talked about the input buffer problem in Street Fighter, how it's taking away the human element of video games. And this is one of the main things, right? One of the most fascinating things about any form of competition is always going to be the human element. The fact that people make mistakes, even at the highest levels, that people choke, that people clutch things out. Clutch combos are exciting because you know they can drop them. If all the combos are free every single time, it's not exciting anymore. Like, as soon as someone hits someone, you're like, oh, yeah, they're dead. But, like, if the combo that kills them requires, like, this crazy timing or this really, really difficult thing to do, that's why it's a lot of times amazing when you see a kill. But a lot of times in Street Fighter, for example, in Street Fighter V, once the guy lands one hit, you're like, oh, yeah, there it is, he's dead. Outside of the rare Nikali super drops after a heavy stomp and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's like they're foregone conclusions, and you lose a little bit of excitement out of that. Sometimes games like Guilty Gear or Marvel or even Street Fighter 4 are exciting because as soon as someone gets the hit, you're still sitting there going, oh my god, is he gonna land? Is he not gonna drop this combo? And he lands it, and you're like, yes, and it's super exciting. So these are kind of things that are very important. And so at high levels, people drop stuff all the time. And that's another kind of one of those myths, is that they feel like these top players, they see them land one-frame links in Street Fighter 4, so they're just like, man, I'll never learn a one-frame link, so these guys are super good or whatever like that. They never mess up. Dude, they mess up all the time. They mess up all the time. And they mess up on the mechanics and the strategy, right? They mess up on both. Again, it's the both in there. I'm not saying one is more important than the other. In fact, even though Day9 here, if you guys are unfamiliar with this guy, this is Day9, a.k.a. Sean Plott, greatest StarCraft teacher probably ever, one of the most famous esports personalities that exists. He is really, really great at teaching StarCraft. And, basically, I just completely forgot my point. What was I saying? What was I saying? Core A Gaming said it. What's exciting is seeing something that seemed impossible. Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. And but yeah, I sidetracked myself. But high-level players make mistakes all the time. And again, they make mistakes on both sides. Oh, that's what I was saying. Was that Sean said that he thinks that StarCraft is secondarily a strategy game and primarily a commander game, a real-time game, a management game, right? Is the managing of all your troops and everything like that. With fighting games, I actually do think it's a little bit opposite. I do think that strategy is primarily what a fighting game is. The strategy side is definitely more important than the mechanics, execution side of fighting games. And it should be that way. There is definitely that aspect to it. I think they're just as important, but if I did have to pick a primary and a secondary, strategy is definitely the primary part of a fighting game, and the mechanics, the controlling, the execution is secondary. However, that is not saying that the focus should be only on strategy. I think that the focus should be on both. So, StarCraft had custom games and team games and other stuff like that for new players to just have fun. Do you think fighting games need stuff like that? I talk about this all the time, but Melee pretty much was like the perfect fighting game in terms of teaching people how to play. Because not only are there like 7,000 different modes to let people play and enjoy the fighting game in the way that they wanted to. You could do free-for-all, you could do items, you could do no items, you could do 1v1, you could have all these different stages that cause these variants. They had home run contests, they had break the targets that helped teach you a bunch of things. Yes, absolutely, fighting games should have multiple modes that help people and let people play in different ways, because once you are sucked in that way, you get to the core game eventually. Even Injustice is doing a great job with that, with the story modes and all these different like crazy things, motivations to get gear so that you can set your AI to fight people and stuff like that. I think that is really, really good, really, really smart. So, why are people so if that's the case, why are people so upset about the lack of execution when in the SF5 strategy is just as lacking, if not more so? Execution, the reason why I think it is important, and we'll get to this in just a little bit, is that execution drives strategy. The lack of execution in Street Fighter V is what's driving the lack of strategy in Street Fighter V. I truly believe this. And we'll get to that in a second because, let me see, I think that's coming up. Yes, that's coming up in a little bit. All right, let's continue. Let's continue this.
And the second reason why I think the, I want to remove mechanics argument is important to throw out the window is that the mechanical difficulty is what creates so many of the strategies. So many of the strategies in the game exist because of this mechanical barrier. Strategies like very Zergling-heavy strategies, which is something that I famously wanted to try to do in every single matchup, except Zerg vs. Zerg, where I like to go mass Hydras, or I like to dodge the whole problem and just focus on my control. But whatever, I'm going too into shit. Mass Zergling strategies, you suddenly have to figure out how to control 100 units. 100 Zerglings is 50 supply. It's nothing. It's a blip on your supply radar. But how do you control all those? I spent weeks just moving units around, studying smart ways of setting up my rally points, making sure my overlords were in specific positions as to not mess with my sub-selection of my Zerglings, so that I could sub-select and send 100 Zerglings in a coordinated fashion at a Terran army. I used to have 12 units here, 12 units here, 12 units here, 12 units here in a diagonal, so that way when the army would be up here, I'd take the farthest one and send it, the second closest one and send it, the third closest one and send it, and the fourth closest one and send it. I would send all these things in one at a time, so that way all the Zerglings arrived at the same time.
Yes. Execution drives strategy. And this is so important to understand, is that this has existed since Street Fighter II. This has just been something that has always existed in fighting games. Your ability to execute something is what drives a lot of the strategy. Because, like I said, the most beautiful thing about Street Fighter is that it rewards different talents, different skills, different strategies. You can be an excellent mechanical execution player, not great on strategy, but you can still do really well, like a player like Marn, like a player like Punko was back when he was Gamble Seth. A lot of people thought that that made them less legitimate players, but that's absolutely false. It's just that they didn't play the way that you liked to watch them play, right? That's just not what you felt was rewarding or should deserve to win. But then you have players who have high strategy and low execution. I'll even mention someone like Justin Wong, right? Justin Wong, he has such great mind games, but when you watch him play Marvel, when you watch him play Street Fighter, like his Karen can't do a lot of the things as consistently and as effectively as Punk can. Even back in Street Fighter 4, he was not necessarily the most high execution kind of player. But he was up there as well. So it rewards a lot of different talents, right? And that's the thing. Execution kind of drives that, because knowing what you can do compared to how you want to play, they're a direct relation with each other. No, not everybody should play like this strategy and you just have to get past the mechanics to get there. No, you're going to see if your strength happens to be mechanics, then you can kind of adjust it just because like your strategy's not as good. So you're going to concentrate on playing a mix-up character that has really difficult execution things. You're going to play Viper. You're going to play Dudley or something like that. If your if your mechanics is really terrible, then you're going to try to up the strategy side. There was a famous player in SoCal who never played in tournaments, but he was legendary as being one of the strongest players in SoCal Street Fighter 2, the original Street Fighter 2 series, World Warrior, a guy named Dean, who went to UCLA, and I would play him every once in a while. He was a generation ahead of me, so basically during Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 was the only time we overlapped and we played each other. But I had gone to UCLA to play visiting my brother, my older brother, at that campus. So I had actually gotten a chance to play Dean before. And Dean was easily, by far, one of the best players ever. And he had no execution. Couldn't do any combos. In fact, at the time that I played him in Alpha 1, I was one of the first people at UCLA to start doing crouching light kick chained into crouching medium kick into super. I was one of the first people to do chains into super cancels. And I remember Dean just looking at me like, you're ridiculous. Like, how do you learn all these stupid execution things? But the funny thing is, he would still kick my ass. In fact, yesterday I told the story about the Bison player who destroyed my birdie in Alpha 2 because he kept doing Devil's Reverse, and then all of a sudden I thought of the way to beat Devil's Reverse and he stopped doing Devil's Reverse and I got super pissed off. That was Dean, okay? That's the same guy. That's the same guy who told me one of the most valuable lessons in fighting games ever, in that he noticed when my behavior changed, so he stopped doing that because he could tell without me ever countering it that I figured out how to counter it. He just knew because he could see the change in behavior in my game. He was so good at the strategy that he didn't need the execution. Yeah, he couldn't do the combos that I could do, but it didn't matter. He wasn't doing as much damage as I was doing with every hit, but he was still kicking my ass, right? So that's the whole thing, is that not doing optimal damage doesn't mean you're not playing the game at the level that you should be playing the game at. You can play at different levels of mechanics and strategy, and you're a valid player. There's nothing wrong with not playing that. And in fact, even if you go back to the sports analogy, like let's go back to the sports analogy here. Let's go to basketball, one of my favorite sports, right? Let's talk about, for example, someone like Michael Jordan. Let's talk about Michael Jordan, right? Physically a monster. He could do things that nobody else could do, right? Then let's go look at John Stockton, right? This pasty white guy with short shorts on, couldn't really, do the crazy physical things like Michael Jordan could, but boy, that guy could pass like nuts. He could steal like nuts. He had such great court awareness. He was able to draw defenses and do all sorts of things. So he played that way. He geared the game towards his strategy. Jordan is going to get more popular because he dunks and it's flashy. But that doesn't mean that Stockton wasn't every bit as great of a player as Jordan was. He was one time the assist leader of the league in all of basketball history, you know? Like, you are going to change your strategy. Like, it's not like you see Jordan play and every basketball player out there is like, I need to do exactly what Jordan does in order to be good. No, a lot of players will find their own way to be good, and that's the important thing. That's the thing about fighting games, right? You have to find your way to be good. If you're not doing max damage combos, it's okay. Sometimes you'll see me when I'm playing and I'm streaming, people are like, James, you should do more damage than that combo. And I'm like, I don't care right now. I don't care. That's not important to me right now. That's not what I'm trying to do right now. I'm trying to learn I'm trying to gear the game to how I play and what my strengths are right now. So there's this one king combo that people are like, this thing is higher damage. It's hard for me to do because I don't know Tekken mechanics. I found another combo that I can do that does less damage, but I'm okay with that. I'm going to play that way. And yeah, I'm leaving some damage on the table, but who cares? That's just a decision that you make. That's just one of the things that you have to figure out and to make the adjustment when you're playing the game. So, Rillian2 MK asks, but James, that's the question. If you play a low execution character and beat up a high execution character, where's the question? Where's the question? Well, NB Silent Shadow asks, I think the problem with the perception of execution as a barrier might be the historical correlation between higher execution and high damage. Usually execution-based strategies revolve around doing a hard combo that does absurd damage. Yeah, a lot of that is true, but, you know, like, let's take a look at Filipino Champ, right? In Street Fighter 4, he won a lot with Dhalsim, and he did that by basically pecking you to death and annoying you to death. He wouldn't win with damaging combos. He just won by annoying you to death and zoning you out to death. There's just different strategies. And again, this goes all the way back to where Street Fighter V suffers, is because the characters don't have enough variety. So they don't reward players like Filipino Champ for having a great defensive Dhalsim. You know what I mean? So, like, even though that's how he wants to play, if you want to play this great defensive Guile, you're not going to be rewarded for that necessarily. Because Guile is not properly played necessarily through only defense. He's zonier than other characters, but in the end, once he knocks you down, he's got the same mix-ups as everybody else, right? Yeah, John Stockton was like 98% from the free throw line. I mean, he found the ways to score or get his teammates to score. He was a brilliant general on the floor, and he figured out how to make himself successful yeah. So look at that. Sim made top 8 at Evo because Champ was able to play that way, and that's just the craziest thing to me. It's like there's just different ways to play. There's not one right way to play fighting games, and that's one of the things that you have to remember. That's one of the things, and the thing that makes fighting games so beautiful is that it rewards different things. You can reward patience, it can reward rushdown, it can reward high execution play, it can reward high strategy play, it can reward all sorts of different things, and fighting games should do that. And Street Fighter V right now, so the breadth of players that something like Street Fighter 4 rewards is like gigantic. It's like this wide angle from left to right. And Street Fighter V kind of rewards this people right here. There's definitely a variety that you can play in there, but there's less play styles that Street Fighter V rewards. And I think that's one of the biggest issues with Street Fighter V, right? But again, if you are bad at mechanics, it doesn't mean you can't win. Right? It just doesn't mean you can't win. I will always bring up Dean in his example. Yes, games were simpler back then, but he was also excellent at Darkstalkers. Darkstalkers 1, which was this crazy chain combo game, but he just knew the strategy. In Alpha 1, he played M. Bison because he could just throw fireballs all day and zone people out, and he beat people with strategy. He never did any fancy combos in any of these games, even all those. The further that the games went on, the fancier the combos were, and it never affected Dean's quality of play. He won every time. He was always the best player at UCLA for the longest period of time. You know, and it never affected him, even though games got more execution heavy and more combo heavy. He just did what he knew he could do, and that worked for him. And that's such an important thing. That's such an important thing. So cater your gameplay to suit your strengths. That's just it. If you're not great at combos, if you're not great at execution, don't play with the big combos in mind. Do the simple combos. Just do the simple combos. And that's fine. That's fine. You're not leaving something on the table because those players who are really good at the execution stuff and not good at the strategy, they're leaving stuff on the table as well, right? They don't have quite the strategy. And you're thinking, well, I have the right thing and they have this fake magical, mystical, execution thing, but that's not real. That's not real fighting games. No, that's completely wrong. That is every bit as much part of fighting games as the strategy in there. So, let's see here. So Bloodberry says his execution is great. He can lab lots of different combos when it comes to strategy on how I'm gonna approach my opponent. I'm clueless. Yeah. And so you're going to work on that, but you don't sit there and go, you know what? Strategy is stupid. Take out all the strategy out of fighting. It should only be execution. Like, nobody says that. But for some reason, when it comes to mechanical execution, people just have this weird thing where they're just like, this shouldn't be in my fighting game. This shouldn't be in my fighting game. It's blocking me from getting to what the real thing about fighting games are. There's nothing real about fighting games being only strategy. Strategy, mechanics, together. Let's keep going through this video. We're almost done with this video. Wrong window.
Now, what is that? This is me taking a skill, a difficult to master mechanical component from the game, controlling shitloads of Zerglings, and using it to formulate a strategy. Now, this is just me, someone who is not the literal best player in the world, as the four aforementioned ones were, but we'll highlight Bisu, someone who took 2 units that were considered bad.
All right, listen to this story here about this player and how he kind of revolutionized strategy.
Corsairs against Zerg. There's a lot of really good Zerg anti-air.
There's going to be a lot of StarCraft dialogue here. If you don't understand StarCraft, don't worry, I don't understand it either. I have no idea what he's talking about, but I get the gist of it. So there's going to be a lot of StarCraft details here.
And if Zerg sees Corsairs, just doesn't build Mutalisks, and Scourge are pretty good against Mutalisks, why would you want to build those? Dark Templar, Zerg has hundreds.
If you guys don't know who this guy is, this is Day9, a.k.a. Sean Plott, brother of, I believe it was Nick Plott, right? One half of our Tastosis, the 2 greatest commentators for StarCraft, and this is Day9, and he is also probably one of the best, most famous strategists of StarCraft. He's one of the greatest teachers of the game, and in fact, he, like, his YouTube videos and everything like that used to have just gobs of views because he taught the game so well to everybody, and he was one of the best educators in the game.
Hundreds of overlords that he will make in the course of, not hundreds, probably tens of overlords that he will make in the course of a game. You're not going to get around undetected. And if someone tries to go Corsair DT, you simply get Overlord speed and you're done. Okay,
so he's just talking about how the perception of one particular strategy didn't work. It's just basically what he's saying.
Right. This is the prevailing logic leading up to I believe it was 2006 that Savior played against Flash in the MSL. Savior, or not Savior and Flash, Savior Bisu MSL. I believe it was 2006. 2007, March of 2007. Okay, cool. That's right. I was a junior in college. And so,
anyway,
Bisu took these 2 bad units, Corsairs and DTs, and figured out how to control them in such a precise, aggressive, but also cautious as to not lose anything manner, that he destroyed the best Zerg player in the world, 3-0, and changed the matchup percentage. Zerg used to beat Protoss 55% of the time. But because Bisu figured out this Corsair DT style, it switched, and then Protosses were winning about 54% of the time.
So he's talking about how one player figured out how to take this element of StarCraft, this management element, which is what makes StarCraft Brood War hard to play. And he figured out how to control these 2 units in such a way that he actually changed the matchup. He actually changed the perception of the matchup, and he came up with the strategy after everyone had already concluded that this strategy was not useful. This has happened in fighting games all the time. I mean, the number one example there is Sako, who basically figured out this really dirty thing that you could do with T-Hawk and Super Turbo, and T-Hawk went from basically the worst character in the game, just somewhere mid-high tier. There are people who say, oh my god, he's like top 3 now. He's not. Okay, T-Hawk is still going to have problems. But he is not the worst character. And in fact, he went up to high mid-tier because he developed this crazy option select, safe jump option select, spinning pile driver, technique that basically blew up like inescapable loot, right? And he completely changed the way that people perceived T-Hawk, right? This has happened in other fighting games as well. And in fact, Jay Vissant even talked about this. And again, I gotta get this guy on the show one time because I just love sitting down and talking to him about video games. I don't even care what the topic is. I just want to talk to the guy for like 7 hours because talking to Jay is just like the most enjoyable thing in the world, just talking about fighting games. But he talks about MVC2 Dalsum. MVC2 Dalsum had so much potential to be one of the best characters in MVC2, but no one ever learned it because nobody had the execution at the time to really learn that character. And to be honest with you, nowadays someone probably could, but it's too late now because MVC2 is not being played all that heavily anymore. But if someone actually took the time and really ironed down Dalsum, we might even have a change in the meta of MVC2. A Dalsum team might have been like an anti-MSP team. Who knows? Maybe an anti-MSS team. Maybe an anti-Santhrax team. I don't know. I'm just making that up. There's no logical reason I'm saying that. I'm just saying that there's a potential in there. But that's what having high-level execution in a competitive game does. Is that it produces new strategies, it produces new metas, because there are some things that people wouldn't think about doing because it feels too hard to do. But then all of a sudden, someone actually takes the time and learns it, and then they can do it, and it just changes the way that people want to play the game. Now, if you're a person who used T-Hawk a long time ago, do you go and try to learn that because that's what you need to learn in order to win? Can you execute it? If you can't execute it, then maybe you'll just stick with the way that you play T-Hawk. I do the same thing with Cammy, and I'm kind of stupid about it, but I am terrible at doing cross-ups with Cammy in Super Turbo. And it's really good, and if I used it a lot more, I'd probably win. I just never went and bothered and learned it because I'm just like, you know what? I'm doing fine with the way I'm playing Cammy right now. These are just decisions that you can make, right? You can make these kind of decisions if it's just something you're not good at, and you don't have to learn it. You literally don't have to learn it. There's nothing you have to learn in a fighting game. And that's, for some other reason, that's the problem that a lot of people have in perceptions in fighting games. They feel like you have to learn things. Now, there are going to be some things that you will have to learn, of course. I'm not going to lie. Of course, you're going to have to learn how to throw a fireball. But I'm just talking about the really high-level execution stuff that everybody feels like that they're forcing themselves to learn, that you don't have to learn. You can play fighting games at your level and still be successful. You can find ways to take your strength and be successful in a fighting game. Now, obviously, the people who are good at execution and strategy and rushdown and defense and patience and, all this stuff, they're going to be the best players in the world, right? But they're so rare. To say, oh, you know what, I want to be like them, so I could basically, it's not fair that I can't do both of those things. Dude, welcome to the earth. Welcome to humanity. Welcome to life. There are just some people out there who are going to be better at everything, and that's just the way it works. That's why they're the ones that are winning all the tournaments, right? That's just the thing. It's just like saying, oh, I can't be Michael Jordan. Oh, I can't be Pete Sampras. I can't be Roger Federer. Oh, I can't be... the StarCraft players that Day9 mentioned here. You have realistic goals. You can find out if you can get there if you just have realistic goals, right? So instead of sitting there going I have to learn both sides of things like Daigo because he has execution and strategy, or infiltration because he has calm down a little bit, right? Start low. Set your goal a little bit lower. Find a player who's kind of shitty but good, and just be I need to be like James Chen. I want to be like James Chen right now. So that's shitty and low right there. But then as you go up, higher and higher, you can start setting your goals a little loftier to be better players like that. So, that's kind of the way that you want. You need to just make sure that you go up the ladder properly, okay? Let's see here. Another thing too is that execution honestly does make things more rewarding. I was playing Super Turbo with Derek and Derek Daniels, and seriously, when you land an uppercut in Super Turbo, it feels so good. When you land a spinning pile driver in Super Turbo, it always feels good. Like, it always just feels so good when you land a spinning pile driver. When that's because spinning pile drivers are harder to do in Super Turbo. But God, when Zangief lands an SPD in Super Turbo, it feels like 10 times better than when I land it in any other Street Fighter game. I don't know what it is. And maybe it's just because I know that it's harder to land, but God, there's something about landing SPDs in Super Turbo that just feels super good. Let's move on.
So a actual 20, like, depends on how you define it, but like a 20 point.
Yeah, I am 100% an emotional guy.
Swing.
Super
where
emotional.
You used to be down by 10% in the win rate as Protoss, and now you're up by 10%. A 20 percentage point swing in the entire matchup because one guy figured out how to do some shit. Oh my God, that's so fucking sick. Are you kidding me? What? That's amazing. That's awesome. That's so cool. And I think that there is, again, to come all the way back to the statement, why doesn't Brood War eliminate all these things that feel like bullshit, annoying, stupid things that I have to learn how to be good at when really I just came here to play a strategy game? Why doesn't that stuff get fixed? And the simple truth is that all of these things are not requirements to begin to play the game. They are the game. So if you suck at 10 of those things, but you're good at 3 of them, you're playing real StarCraft. You're doing great. You're doing just fine. Just like if you sat down at Rock Band, yeah, they're playing expert level songs. You can play the new songs, and if you're hitting things on beat and getting combos, you're playing the game. That's the game. You're succeeding at the game. And all of that creates this delicious beauty of strategy and skill ceiling that, as far as I'm concerned, no game has come close to matching. I fucking love StarCraft. Embrace the fact that it is a real-time game. If you want to play football or soccer, you're going to have to get in good physical shape to do it. If you want to play StarCraft, you're going to have to get in good physical shape to do it. You need to be on point. I can't wait for Brood War to come out. Let's play some shitty Ancestors Call Shaman.
Okay, so there you go. That's the end of the video right there. And I just had to let him go towards the end because it's so true. So much of that is so true. And again, shout outs to Day9TV. I tweeted Day9TV on Twitter, and one of the Day9TV crew told me that I was allowed to use this video on the stream. So shout outs to them. Much appreciated to those guys out there. And once again, shout outs to Sean Plott. Again, I've met him in person. Super cool guy. He's another one of those guys that I would just love to sit down and talk game theory with forever. It's weird too because I have this weird there's this weird tied history with him in this weird roundabout way. It's so weird because this is just completely side story. It has nothing to do with anything, but this is just James Chen being old man talking to clouds kind of thing. But back in my old job, one of my coworkers actually came up to me, an older gentleman, and I saw a threes magnet on his cabinet. There's a puzzle game on mobile platform called Threes. And I was like, oh, that's a really fun game. And he's like, oh, yeah? You know who made that? And I'm like, who made that? He's like, my son made that. And I was like, oh, whoa, that's so cool. Tell your son I love his game. Then it turns out that his son actually had a friend move into their house with them to live for a while, to rent out a room at their home. And it was his son's friend was actually Sean Plott, was actually Day9. So when I was actually talking to my coworker about esports and stuff like that, he totally knew what I was talking about. He totally got it and stuff like that. So it was just weird. I was just like, this is so weird. Then the next time I saw Sean, I was like, do you know this person? He was like, yes, I do. And I was like, he was my coworker at one point in time. It was the weirdest thing. It was the weirdest thing, but it was really, really cool. He was like, really? That's crazy. But honestly, I haven't really had a long chances to talk with Sean. I've only met him a couple of times. But again, he's just one of those guys that I would love to talk to because I see videos like this and I love the way that he describes it. He describes it succinctly. That's an 11-minute video. That video would have taken me 19 hours to make, right? He just knows how to do everything so succinctly, and I do not, as obvious by the fact that the stream has been going for an hour and 15 minutes already to get through an 11-minute video. But to close on this half of the whole entire thing, strategy plus skill together, meshed together, makes such a beautiful game. It just makes such a beautiful game because they drive each other, right? It's like the gritty rock of John Lennon and the happy pop of Paul McCartney clashing together and making the Beatles make some of the greatest music. Day in the Life, one of the best songs in the history of modern music, is because you have John Lennon portion with Paul McCartney portion mixed together. Then you have John Lennon trying to out Paul McCartney with beautiful love ballads, and then you have Paul McCartney trying to out rock John Lennon with some great rock songs, and you just end up making this beautiful music. It's like some of the greatest music in the world, and that's where fighting games, I feel like, come in. You've got the execution, you've got the strategy, you blend them together, they fight against each other. Sometimes you'll run into a person who has execution that's beating you that you feel like doesn't deserve to beat you because their execution is better than yours, but their strategy isn't. But that just forces you to up your strategy, so you start beating them. Sometimes you are fighting against this one guy who outthinks you every single time because your strategy is not as good and you have this execution, so you learn higher damage combos that are harder to do, but you will strive in that direction because that's your strength and that's what you're going to learn. And so maybe you can actually beat those guys. So you come up with the sickest, dirtiest mix-up that requires crazy execution with Magneto or whatever like that. Those two forces are fighting against each other, and they're both making each other grow that much stronger. It's so important. And the other thing too so let me just finish that. Yes, those two things added together, fighting each other, is what makes a lot of fighting games brilliant. And Brilliant 2 MK, I'm going to get to that. That's going to be my second point after this first point. So the one thing that I want to say here is that I am not arguing that all fighting games should have execution. That is not what I'm arguing here, because I don't believe that. I do not agree with that. I do think there is a place for fighting games with low execution. I do not think Fantasy Strike is a mistake. I do not think Rising Thunder is a mistake. I think both of those games are really smart things to do. They will fill a space. Well, Rising Thunder would have had it still been being made, but Fantasy Strike can fill a void that no fighting game fills, right? So the example that Serlin had in the Core A gaming video is that like Dive Kick is here, every other fighting game is here, but there's nothing right here, and he's trying to put Fantasy Strike here, and that's great, that's perfect, that's beautiful. But the reason why that works is that Fantasy Strike and Rising Thunder are built around the concept that they have easier execution. They are built around that concept. Fantasy Strike doesn't have higher lows. There's no crouch blocking in that game. There's no high, it's all left-right kind of mix-ups and other kinds of mix-ups and strategies, how you open people up. Rising Thunder had cooldowns on special moves, so that whiffing a special move or missing a special move had more cost. Street Fighter, at its inherent nature, is not a game built for easy execution. To expand on this, the input buffer that I got so mad about last week is not meant for Street Fighter. It works in Tekken because Tekken is built for input buffer. There's 900 moves, and it's so hard to block high or low in that game. If Street Fighter V wants to have success in the input buffer, give more people overheads that are a lot more punishable that lead to bigger combos. And then give them a ton of moves on the ground so that you can't keep track of everything, and now you have this good mix-up. Give them better ranged normals. When I use a Tekken character, I have moves that hit right here, hit right here, hit right here. I have moves where I lunge forward and hit over there. I have moves that go all the way over here. So at every range, at every distance, you have to keep something in mind. That's how you build a game around input buffer. Fantasy Strike builds a game around lack of execution by, reducing the mix-up potential. Rising Thunder builds the lack of execution on special moves or by putting cooldowns on everything. Street Fighter is not inherently built to be a low execution game. If you are going to change the execution of Street Fighter, you have to change the entire fundamental nature of Street Fighter, and therein lies the problem of Street Fighter V. They are trying to take a game which existed in a certain space and turn it into something else without changing any other part of the game. And that is why Street Fighter V's execution, lack of execution, is causing a lot of the problems. Because now everything is guaranteed to do. The strategy gets reduced in the game. Right? There's no strategy in the game because everybody's doing the same thing. There's like no variety in there. And that is one of the fundamental problems of Street Fighter V. They're trying to turn it into something else without taking any of that into account. You can't lower the execution of Street Fighter without changing a lot of the fundamental concepts by the way the game plays. The game was designed around execution. You could walk forward and uppercut. So if you ever saw Ryu walk backwards in your Dhalsim, you would hit standing strong to poke him from a screen away. Because the chances of him walking backwards and uppercutting out of nowhere is small because of execution. Because going from back to forward and uppercut is not as easy as walking forward. If you see Ken walking up at you, you're scared. Because uppercut motion is designed for walking forward. If you see Ryu walking forward, you're less scared of a fireball because walk forward into fireball is not as easy. If you see Ryu crouching, you're scared of fireballs because fireballing from crouching is a little bit easier. These execution things have always been built into Street Fighter. Even Zangief. The fact that when you fight against Zangief, you're going to be worried about the jump. You're going to dedicate 60% of your brain, 70% of your brain to anti-air Zangief because you do not want to jump at him, jump at you. Why is that? Because walk-up SPD inherently, naturally, at minimum, takes 5 frames to execute. And that's execution. It's every bit as much execution as anything else. So because of that, when Zangief walks into SPD range, you have 5 extra frames to react and hit him with a button before he SPDs you. And no human is going to be doing an SPD in 5 frames anyway. That's just not going to happen because it's just that's literally 1/12 of a second. So you're going to focus your strategy on anti-airing Zangief and not worrying about the ground as much, right? That's just part of the game. That's just by nature of the game. If spinning pile driver was literally back and punch, the whole meta of Zangief changes in every game. If I walked up and hit back and throw and that was SPD, the entire strategy of how you fight Zangief changes. The entire thing. You didn't change what the move does. You didn't change the damage of it. You didn't change anything. You just changed how you do the move. The entire strategy of Zangief changes, right? Execution has always been a part of fighting games. Now, the examples that I'm giving right there are about as minor as possible. I have distilled it down to something very, very small and very simple. But that is basically the concept behind Street Fighter. Street Fighter has always been about execution. Is Sonic Boom too good? All right, we'll make it a charge move. Or because we made it a charge move, we're going to reward you by having this no recovery fireball because the execution of that move is inconvenient, right? And so what people have learned to do now is they've learned to play characters like Guile. Like, it's almost like it's not a charge character. Like, people who try to learn charge characters are like, how do these Guile players throw Sonic Boom so fast all the time? I feel like every time I have to charge, I have to stop moving, I have to stop walking. So people have crafted a strategy around the way you perform these special moves. Again, the execution is what dictates a lot of the strategy. And that's the way Street Fighter has always been. I brought this up to David a little bit yesterday on the Tuesday show, and he said the right thing. He said, like, you know what, but Day9 is talking about Brood War, and that's how Brood War plays. That shouldn't be how necessary. That's not a requirement for other games. And I agree with him 100%. But to me, that's how Street Fighter plays. And yeah, Street Fighter V is a different game, so we have the leeway to change things. But like I said, you can't do it without fundamentally changing the game. It happened with Street Fighter 3. Street Fighter 3 New Generations came out, they added parries, and they didn't know how powerful parries were. They didn't know about option selecting everything. They thought it would just be like this really high skill. It basically destroyed the game. And it stayed that way in Street Fighter Second Impact. And then finally, in Third Strike, they built the game around it. They built the game around the concept of parries. And they still didn't do a good enough job because obviously the game is super imbalanced. But at the same time, the game is still built around the concept of parries. They made sure they gave everybody moves that can't be down parried. They made sure they gave everyone moves who can't be stand parried. Jumps only had one parry angle. They twisted the game and designed it with the parry concept in mind. And so they fundamentally changed how Street Fighter played, but then by the time they got the third strike, they knew what they were doing and they were able to fix it. This is kind of one of the reasons why I'm glad Capcom has not changed Street Fighter V for 2 seasons. Because now we get what Street Fighter is. And now me, even as an analyst and a player and someone who loves studying these things, I understand what's wrong with Street Fighter. Which means I feel like that will give us the better chance of fixing things in Season 3. Will that happen? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe it won't. But I have hope. I have hope. But that's basically why I feel like execution... Like, I just love this video. I love watching. I wanted to share it with people and just talk about how it applies to Street Fighter V. And Street Fighter in general, and fighting games in general. I'm sorry, not just Street Fighter, but fighting games in general. But I say Street Fighter V because all the FGC is Street Fighter, right? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, guys. I'm just kidding. Street Fighter has never been around heavy execution. It's never been Guilty Gear. It's never been about that, but the thing about it is the heavy execution in Street Fighter is different than the heavy execution in games like Guilty Gear and Tekken. They're two very, very, very different things, right? Street Fighter execution is just about like having like weird mechanics in place and just really precision. It's precision. You have to be precise. But when you put the input buffer in the game, everyone is precise. You've basically turned everybody into that precision machine. And that's what makes Street Fighter V less impressive, is because everyone can do everything, and everybody there is no, you like eliminated the high level of Street Fighter V. Yeah, okay, it's really going to come down to who outsmarts who, but you know that's why a lot of people are mad. There's just this guessing game all of a sudden. You know, once you get knocked down, it's like, what's the mix-up? Was it shimmy? Is it throw? Is it meaty? Etc., etc. And you know, that's a lot of where the problem is, because you've removed a lot of the execution. You've removed a lot of the precision, so now the game is repetitive. The game is the same thing over and over and over again. And that's where a lot of the frustration lies. You didn't give people a lot of room to express themselves, to shine. You don't give the people who are good at one talent, you don't reward people who are good at this talent and not this talent. You're not rewarding these people who are good at this talent and not this talent, etc., etc. Most of the best fighting games, the character variety was deep enough that, you know, if you're not an execution god, you played Dalsum and Guile. If you just liked walking into things and you're not good at defense, then you played like a grappler, because then you had lariats, and then you just walked into everything and tried to SPD people all day. Like, these things don't... Like, I'm sad that Zangief isn't a defensive machine anymore, because that kind of ruined his strategy and mechanic. And it's cool that it's different this time, and I appreciate that, but in the end I kind of miss it. I kind of miss the old Zangief and such like that. So, but again, this is not to say that, you know, games should not be... shout outs to Schifferbrains, thank you for becoming a general into the Chen Dynasty. But again, this is not saying that execution is the only thing that should exist in fighting games. I'm just saying that in Street Fighter V, there has definitely always been a history of an important aspect of fighting game, of execution in Street Fighter. And by taking away that execution and not making up for it in different ways, so taking away the execution, reducing the number of moves that exist in the game, are antithetical to each other. The reason why Tekken works the way it does is because there are so many moves in the game. And so it's hard to keep track of things, and that's what makes it so that it's not stale, that you don't see the same thing every time. And not only that, but you notice that Tekken is like, oh, we have input buffer, all these things. Okay, so when you get knocked down, you have like 9 wake-up options. Street Fighter V needs 9 wake-up options. I'm serious, and they all need to have faults to them. And you need to have more variety of ranged moves on the ground and stuff like that. You need more overheads. Ones that reward, like ones that are fast overheads that do no damage, and then really slow overheads that lead to combos, etc., etc. You need that kind of variety to make up for the lowering of execution, but they didn't. They took away moves. And they universalized everything. Every sweep is minus 12. Right? Every sweep is punishable. Every overhead is minus 6. Nobody's uppercut is invincible without meter anymore, etc., etc. you've universalized everything, and you've made it easier to do things, and you've taken options away, and therein lies why Street Fighter V has grown as garnered as much disdain as it has. I still believe that Street Fighter V is a good game, and there's a lot of good things about it, a lot of good concepts on it, but they have to expand on what it is. I don't want them to change it to Street Fighter 4. I don't want them to change it to Street Fighter 2. I don't want them to change it to Street Fighter Cross Tekken, whatever. They need to take what they have here and refine the game like they did to Third Strike, like they did from Alpha 1 to Alpha 2, like they did from CVS 1 to CVS 2. They need to take the existing game and really refine what they have. And I hope they do that. And I really do hope they do that. But this is, again, third week in a row again, I'm talking about Street Fighter V. I just didn't really want to do that. So let's just talk about that video. Again, mechanics is not a barrier to strategy. Mechanics and strategy are both parts of the game. And that's just something that you have to understand. Now, having said all that, I also really, really, really want to talk about mechanics, about execution, about why some people are good at execution better than others, because there's this weird misunderstanding of how execution works. But before I do that, I'm going to go and take a break. Because I need to take a break, and when I come back, I'm going to do the second half of this episode, which is the myth of combos. I want to talk about the myth of combos. And what did you say, Saber, here? I just saw Saber say something here. Do you think that having high execution limits the audience of fighting games, even if they did teach better? No, not at all. High execution, look at Smash Melee. That's like one of the most watched fighting games on Twitch. And I still think Melee has the highest execution out of all fighting games that are currently played right now. It doesn't limit it from the audience aspect at all. And in fact, there have been many articles out there that say that the reason why people watch esports is because they really enjoy watching people do things they can't do. And so that is, I think that's actually really important. I think that's now, again, execution ceiling and barrier of entry are also not mutually exclusive. You keep the ceiling high, but find a way to make the barrier of entry lower. That's what all great games do, right? All great games are easy to start and fun to play right away, and then by the time you get to the highest level, it's that much more rewarding, because now it feels like the time that you put in there is actually rewarding you for something, right? The problem with Street Fighter is it's easy to get in, but then it stops right here with Street Fighter V. And so when you put in all this time, you don't feel like you're rewarded for anything, for putting the time into the game. And I think that's tough. And again, execution, high level skill ceiling, and barrier of entry are not mutually exclusive. You can have both. And Saber said that, he and Velociraptor made an article about how Capcom has drastically redesigned Street Fighter in the past. Yeah, it's always been different. Every game has always been different, and it takes a while for them to refine what it is that they want to do with it. Like I said, I don't want them necessarily to add more execution into Street Fighter V. If they can figure out a way to build the game around the lack of execution and make it a compelling game in a different way, I'm okay with that too. But what they're trying to do is they were trying to take what Street Fighter was in Street Fighter 4 and turn it into a lower execution game, and those two did not mesh. So they have to make a choice right now. They either have to add more execution into Street Fighter 5 or fundamentally redesign how Street Fighter 5 plays to complement the lower execution in there. And that's the thing. That's basically the best way to think about it. That's the best way to state it there. The number of people who buy the game. No, again, that's all based on cool one-player content. If you have cool one-player content in there, people are going to enjoy it. They're just going to enjoy it. As long as there's a lot of ease of entry in there. Because that's the thing, is right now, a lot of the problem with fighting games is really is just about playing online. And a lot of people don't have that interest right away. A lot of people don't have that goal. And when you do play online for a lot of other games, it's easier because you have friends on your team. I talked about the game Absolver in the Tuesday show yesterday, and this is not a plug for the game, but one of the cool decisions they made is that you could team up with a mentor in that game and follow him around and learn by watching a better player than you, and you just choosing him as a mentor, and you'll learn from them. You'll automatically gain moves and level up. Like, it would actually be really, really cool if in fighting games, like, they created a buddy system where someone better than you, you choose someone as your mentor, and as they play, they win you points to unlock things, and the better that you do, you get them more points, so they have incentives to keep teaching you. You guys can watch each other's matches, and like, it'd just be a lot of, like, there's just a lot of things that they could do to the online experience or just the single player experience of fighting games that would actually be super cool that I just don't think that they do. And it's going to take a long time. Someone's going to think of something, and it's going to be amazing, and it's going to be miraculous. But it'll take a while, and we just haven't thought of it yet. If it was easy to think of, someone would have done it already. It's just the way it works, right? It's just the way it works. So, what's my opinion on Absolver? I mean, just from the trailer that I saw, it looks interesting. That's all I've seen is the trailer. I haven't even had a chance to play it or do anything with it yet, so I can't really form an opinion yet, to be honest with you. That just makes you salty as students? Interesting. Okay. That defeats the point of learning fighting games. No. It doesn't defeat the purpose of learning fighting games. Learning fighting games is it's a brutal thing. It's very brutal, and that's why recently, I did the interview with Esports Narrative, and he keeps putting out the quotes that I have, and one of them is like, getting good at fighting games is learning deep within your soul. And that's true, because it's such a brutal experience learning fighting games. And we have to figure out a way to make it less brutal. I mean, a lot of people talk about, you know what, I learned fighting games through the fire and flames. They should learn it that way. No. We learn things so we can teach others. We go through things so that we can teach others. And that's just the way the world works, right? Like, who wants to, like, if you ever want to ride a bike, you buy a bike that somebody else learned how to build, right? You're not going to sit there and go like, you know what, you can't ride a bike until you learn how to build your own bike, right? Like, some of the greatest, like X Games bikers out there, probably couldn't build a bike to save their life, right? Like, but because someone else figured out how to make a bike, now they can perfect it better than anyone else, right? Like, the point of fighting games is to get good players and to watch good players play and try to get as many good players as possible, regardless of their path. I don't care how you get good at fighting games. I just want you to get good at them. That's all. That's all. So I'm trying, really. I'm trying to teach the best that I can. I'm trying, and I'm making it up as I go. And trust me, it's not easy. Because like I said, if it's the same thing. If there was a great way, if we knew already how to teach fighting games, someone would already be doing it. And so I'm trying to make it up as best that I can right now. So, but in any case, I'm going to take a quick break, and I just want to talk about combos. This is, again, it's going to be a reiteration of a couple of rants that I've done, which I called soapboxes on my on the UNCHENSORED YouTube channel. But I want to just put it down here because it's related to execution. Because I really want to debunk some myths about execution. So I'll be right back. I'm going to take a commercial break, and when I come back, I'm going to talk about the myth of combos. So be right back, guys. All right, I'm back here. So yeah, during the break, the chat's been talking about how to teach people how to get good at fighting games and everything like that, and what's the best way to get people who aren't interested in it. And I talked about how one of the main things is just showing how fun it is, and that's why I think Street Fighter V had so much momentum. I actually give a lot of credit to Combo Fiend and Mike Ross. When you actually watched Mike Ross and Combo Fiend played, it was just funny because Combo Fiend would just beat up on Mike Ross, and they would just trash talk each other. They just made the game look so fun. Even the Capcom Pro Talk, when Mike would play, he would lose a lot, and they would give away all those free Twitch Primes and stuff like that. He would lose a lot, and it was one of those great things to show that even stronger players would lose a lot, and yeah, cross counter was beautiful for that, and so that's what Tasty Steve and Sajam are doing, teaching each other in the recipe. They're trying to show each other how to play these games as well. It's it's nice to watch people having fun even while they're losing, and it's tough because when all we watch are tournament streams all day, and all it is just watching people win all the time. You know, you always focus on the person who wins. You don't think about the people who lose all the time, and basically everybody in a tournament loses except for one person. Like, it's hard because we're so focused on that win as opposed to focus on enjoying the game. However, it does suck a lot of the times because of the fact that we have to spend all this time trying to teach people how to have fun with fighting games and stuff like that. But to be honest with you, we shouldn't be the ones that have to do that. We shouldn't be the ones that have to do that. The game itself should teach you that. And like I said, I have come up with so many ideas. And, you know, again, full disclosure, you know, like before Street Fighter V came out, when it was first announced, I wrote this giant email to Capcom. I was like, these are the one-player features that you have to include in your game. These are things that will help people learn, and none of them got in there. So, just saying, I'm just saying, the hardest part about it is they don't see the returns on that right away. There's no obvious correlation between spending that much resource, time, money, development, like effort, and like, because you could make this mini game and it should be shitty beyond all reason, you throw it away. It's like, it's an unexplored territory, so the amount of work that you have to put into it isn't going to translate directly into dollars, and so it's hard to convince anybody. And this is not just Capcom, this is not just esports or whatever like that, this is any company. Any company, if you can't explain to the people who are way up there, like the presidents and all the people who are just worried about the fiscal reports, if you can't show them why doing something is going to translate directly into money, it's not going to get done. It's like I said, my experience in the software industry has just been all about that. We should add this feature to the product. Why? Because it'll make it more easier to use and people will like it better. Does it add any functionality? No. Does it make anything, like, does it give people new features? No, it just makes it more easier to use. Then we're not going to do it. Like, it's like, it was one of the toughest things to do, is to convince people to do things that, you know, didn't directly translate into profits and stuff like that. And so, you know, it's hard to get those kind of tutorial things built into the game unless you're someone like Keats or Mike Z and you basically just have the ability to go like, we're putting this in the game. But at the same time, you don't want to tank your game. Like, what if Mike Z was like, okay, we're going to put the super robust system into Skullgirls, and they did that, and in lieu of making any more DLC characters, so the game only had 6 characters, and the game's going to die anyway, right? So it's like, God, you know, it's such a tough situation to have to deal with. No matter what people say, tutorials are a valuable asset. Yes, tutorials are a valuable asset, but they need to be framed differently. They need to be, I hate tutorials because they're tutorials. I hate tutorials because they're tutorials because you're being told that you're being taught. And in fact, Skullgirls even has a chalkboard with a teacher in the background when you're doing most of their tutorials. You're being told that you're being taught. And so you barrel through them all at once. You gain 700 bits of information, of which 2 that you will remember. And you will never play them again because you got whatever achievement that you get for finishing the tutorials. Tutorials need to be repetitive. Tutorials need to be something that people are convinced to continually play again and again and again and again and again. And the game has to teach you. That's how video games teach you. This is exactly what I was talking about with games like God of War. You learn things because you keep dying and you want to beat the game, so you play the level again, right? You run into the same bad guys again, and again, and again, and eventually you start learning how to brutalize them in ways that you didn't know how to do before. Same thing with Devil May Cry. Like, oh, I figured out how to chain into these attacks, and I can do, oh my god, this is, oh wow, cool. And you keep doing that because you keep playing it over and over and over again. Tutorials in fighting games need to be that. They need to be something that you're playing over and over and over and over again that have subtle ways to actually teach you how to play the game better. Home run contests, break the targets. I've told you, like, all you had to do was put timer and a record distance goal for knocking the beanbag, knocking the sandbag, and you just play it over and over again because you're like, dude, I got 1,100 feet with Yoshi, dude. Suck it. And then your friend's like, what are you talking about? I got 1,500. And you're like, what the heck? What do I not know? What? and then you go and find out how they did it, and then you try to replicate it, and you inherently learn something that you didn't know. Like, it's just repetition and fun. Repetition and fun. That is how you do tutorials. Repetition and fun. That's it. Getting beat up online over and over again is not like that, because you're losing to another human being and you get salty. Like, when I lose to a person online, everyone I lose to online, I feel like is on the other end laughing at me. And that's one of the reasons why I get so salty. Because I'm hard on myself. Because if I played me and I beat me like that, I would be laughing at me. You know what I mean? Like, that's what makes it tough. There has to be this understanding that playing against other people and losing, because someone else is doing it, it feels cheap. It feels like they're cheating. It feels like it's unfair. But, like, when you play a video game, and you know that this game exists, obviously it's beatable, otherwise they wouldn't have released the game. So your brain will tell you to keep trying until you beat the game if you're enjoying it enough. There's no point in time in which you feel like you can't beat it. And so you're going to keep trying. And that's how you're going to teach people in fighting games. That's going to have to teach people in the fighting games. So, let's see. I think we need a game advertised as an RPG or an action game with a little side fighting mode. Honestly, I think Iron Galaxy and Lab Zero are the most suited to make it. Yeah, but I mean, it's a little tricky that way because then it's being marketed not as a fighting game. You need a fighting game marketed with a great one-player tutorial thingy, mini-game. That's not real. I mean, like, I actually loved Subspace Emissary from Smash on the Wii. I loved that thing. I mean, when I played it, I thought it was okay, but I just loved it because it forced you to use every character. You would automatically, on the stages where you get to pick which character you use, you would automatically run into your favorites. And you just had this idea of how to use your attacks and hit people. I love the concept of Subspace Emissary. Like, I feel like in order to make a proper tutorial, someone needs to expand on that kind of a concept there. It's interesting how Day9 talked about about taking the time and effort to practice controlling his Zerglings. That was something he had to figure out on his own. Yeah, and that's the thing is, you know, he had to figure out on his own, but the game helped him get there. The game helped him get to the point where he would... I mean, he had to figure out how to control 100 Zerglings, but the game has already taught you how to control 12. You know what I mean? Like, just through the one-player campaigns, increasing in difficulty and stuff like that. Just by the pace of RTSs, that you can start off calm and everything like that. You learn a lot of things to get to the point where you can start making up those high-level strategies. I'm not telling you that, like, fighting games need to teach you all the high-level strategies in their tutorials. I'm just telling you that they just need to teach you how to play the game and how to approach the game and understand the mechanics of the game. And then you can start developing the strategies at that point in time. So, damn you, Bloodberry. I hate you. Oh, man. Yeah, the game introduced him to the fact that he can control that many. He just had to figure out how to do it, etc., etc. So, let's talk about the dispelling the myth of combos, okay? Because the one thing that I want to talk about, a lot of times when people talk about execution, and they hate it, they're like, I can't do this combo, I can't do this combo, I can't learn the execution part. That's why you shouldn't have execution in fighting games, because you know what? I'm not going to be one of those people who's going to learn how to do stupid, crazy 20-hit combos with Zato and stuff like that. This is dumb. Like, this is dumb. I shouldn't have to learn this kind of thing. It's stupid, right? And so what I'm going to do here right now is just talk about the myth of combos, okay? The main thing that I really, really want to talk about combos is that as hard as combos are, they are probably one of the easiest things to, I don't want to say get good at, but they are one of the easiest things to learn. The reason why I actually want to talk about why it's so easy to learn is because people have this mistaken concept that combos are magic. A lot of the times when they try combos, like let's say you try to do a Street Fighter 4 trial and you're trying to do a one-frame link and you can't land the one-frame link and you're like, I just can't do it. It's just not working. It's like impossible. I don't know how to do it, right? There's this concept out there that people who are good at combos have some sort of magical touch. right? Because that is what sports teaches you. That is what the world teaches you. That is what the world has taught us. Someone who can shoot a three-pointer like Steph Curry just does it because there's something in his muscles and he just has the ability to throw the ball at just the right angle and the ball is going to go into the basket. Like he just has this weird innate ability to land combos. Here's the thing. I mean, to make three-pointers. Combos are not like that. Combos actually are 100% not like that. There's no innate ability that you can have that makes you better at combos than anybody else. And the reason why I say that is because combos are an exact science. Combos are going to work 100% of the time with the same inputs given the same scenario. If I take a programmable controller and I program it to do inputs and I have a saved state and I run those inputs in that saved state, the same thing is going to happen every single time. There's no magic in combos. Combos are an exact science. And unless the game programs randomness in there, like Zappa Summons or like Faust Fireball, it is an exact science. So, if you understand that combos are a science, when you can't land a combo, you will understand that there probably is a reason. There is probably a reason why it is not landing. Now, the only thing that may be an inherent innate ability is rhythm. If you have bad rhythm, that is going to be a problem. That is probably the one thing that is a natural ability that's going to help you in fighting games. Which is why musicians are always better at combos than people who aren't musicians. That's why Marlon Pie found out he plays piano. Desk plays bass guitar. Right? I used to play the piano, and I loved playing hard songs on the piano because I loved trying to finger execute things like that. Rhythm is probably the main thing, but rhythm is not as hard to learn as people think it is, right? So a lot of times when people are trying links and they can't get it, they're just magically trying to hit a button and just praying that it comes out. And every time I tell them, think of it like a rhythm game, right? If the move doesn't come out, you're hitting it too early. If the move doesn't combo, you're hitting it too late. So rather than just guessing when you hit the second button, memorize the rhythm. Human beings have an ability to remember rhythm, right? So you remember that timing. I can repeat it pretty consistently. I may be slightly off, but it's going to be generally about the same every time. I know that is slower, and I know that is faster than, which is the same rhythm that I use to start with. People just have a natural innate ability to understand rhythm. So the rhythm is going to be the one innate thing about combos that probably is going to cause some people to be better at it than others. But outside of that, what I want people to really, 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 really understand is that combos are a science. They're programmed. This is a computer program. It can only do what you tell it to do. And so if your combo is not connecting, there is almost always a reason for that. Now, Suburban Socrates talks about the problem with doing combos in my experience is memory. Yes, I will address that in a second. That's another thing that I'm going to address. It's actually on my notes. There we go. It's actually on my notes. Now, the reason why it's important to understand this, I just recently had this experience playing Uniel. I was going through Nanase's trials. Now, if that thing was in English, God, those trials are ridiculous. They have some great trials in Uniel, by the way. The stuff that they have in Uniel is great. Like, they teach you a lot of really, really, really cool things. I hope not, Caramel Jenkins. That would be scary. But here's the thing. Yeah, rhythm is just a pattern. So I was trying to do one of the harder combos in the Nanase trials at Uniel, and I couldn't do it. there was one part that I knew that was the key part, was the timing of when I did a fireball. And it felt like it was a one-frame thing. And I was like, this is dumb. Why would you put this in the trial? This is way too hard. And I kept doing it, and there was no way I could do it consistently. Like, it was just really impossible. Even when I did land it, it didn't really felt like I did anything in particular that made it work. And that bothered me. That really bothered me. And I seriously spent like an hour and a half on this one combo, and I could not do it consistently. And by the time I finally did it the third time, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to move on. But in my mind, I knew that I was doing something wrong. That there was a fault in the way that I was doing the combo, because it probably isn't actually that hard. Because if they put it as a trial, there's probably a reason that, you know, they're trying to teach that particular combo to you, especially with the way that the trials had been working up to that point. None of the combos had felt that way. And so I kept going at it, and then eventually I went back to the combo and I said, you know what? I'm not doing the combo right. There's something I need to change. But see, this is the thing. This is the difference between me and a lot of other people who are doing combos. A lot of people will try these combos and they can't get it to work, and they're like, there's just a magic timing to it. And I don't have that magic. But for me, I was like, there's a reason why this combo isn't working. There's a reason why this combo isn't working. And so I thought about it, and I changed up one thing. I changed up the timing of part of the combo partway through it, and that made the part that was really hard for me a lot easier to do. And then all of a sudden, I was doing the combo super consistently. But that was because I knew that there was probably some reason why the combo wasn't working. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't do when they can't land combos. A lot of times when I'm trying to land combos, you'll see it when I play on stream too. When I can't land a combo, I'll stop, I'll go to training mode, and I try to figure it out. And then I try to figure out easy ways to do it. This happened with me with a Kazumi combo in Tekken. I was like, I can't do this combo. People watch me get into the combo vortex. I couldn't do it. And other people are like, I can do this all the time. And then I was like, okay, there's got to be easier ways to do this combo. And then I found out the way that I was doing it was too hard. I was making it more complicated than I thought it was, because there were shortcuts that you could use to do the combo properly. Now I can do that Kazumi combo almost consistently every single time, right? So, yeah, okay, really into MK, I'm going to get to that. That is definitely something that I'm going to get to about that. The rhythm does change throughout, but all of that is, you can remember. You can remember rhythm and its patterns. So sometimes it's... Like, why can everybody do shave and a hat trick? Because everyone knows that rhythm. If you had a combo that the timing for the combo was... everyone would be able to do that combo. Because you just had that rhythm memorized, right? Like, eventually you're going to be able to start memorizing different rhythms for different combos and stuff like that. And then not only that, because combos are scientific, you find ways to make it work that way. You actually make it work that way, and you can get super consistent with it. One of the worst mechanics in Street Fighter 4 is uncancelable light strings. It was super confusing in the beginning. Yes, and there is a reason why it exists. There's a reason why it exists, and a lot of people don't know why. But at first, lights were not chainable. In the beta of Street Fighter 4 that I played, lights were not chainable, and it was terrible. It was terrible, because it wasn't Street Fighter. Like people, that Street Fighter has chainable lights. That's part of the nature of the game. It wasn't in there. Then they were like, whoops, okay, we added it in there. And then everybody could do light, uppercut. Light, uppercut. It turned to CVS 1. Light, special. Light, special. It was CVS 1 part 2. That was everyone's best combo. Light, special. Light, special. Light, special. And it was really stupid. And so they put that rule in there, which exists in Super Turbo. They put the Super Turbo rule into the game. And so Super Turbo behaves the same way. And that's how it ended up. So there's a story of why it ended up that way. There's actually a story that it ended up that way. So it's called Elite B Agents, or Oendin, as I prefer to call it, because Elite B Agents is compared to Oendin. So, but that's just me. That's just me. So where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So basically, the one thing to understand about combos is that a lot of times if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that you do not have the magical touch. It probably means there's something that you don't understand. So there was a Marvel 3 player. You know, he didn't really know I was super good at combos until I told him. And he's like, can you teach me this combo? He's like, I can't do this combo at all. And so I went and played it, and I tried this combo, and I got it to work. And it turned out the reason why he couldn't do the combo was because after he launched with Ryu, he would super jump forward, and I would super jump neutral. And that actually changed it, because neutral jump gets you this high, forward jump gets you this high. You actually get higher with neutral jumps than you did with forward jumps, and it just made sense for me to do that. And eventually I showed him that, and he was like, what the hell? And now then he was able to do it more consistently. There's always like these little, so like if you're trying a combo and you can't get it consistently, instead of thinking to yourself, I just don't have this ability to do it. I can't do this. I can't, it's impossible because I just don't have the fingers. I just don't have the magic. Like, it's not the answer. That's not the answer. There's actually probably something going on that you can learn that will make the combo work and make the combo easier. There's a reason other people can do it consistently, and it has almost nothing to do with magic. It almost has nothing to do with magic. Yes, there are going to be some people who have, you know, disabilities, that they can't particularly do things particularly well with their hands. Some people just don't have the control over their hands. So again, in those situations, you don't have to learn the hardest combos. Learn simpler combos ahead of time. But then there are guys like Broly Legs who can't even use his hands, right? I mean, like, he literally has one hand and he can hold his controller and he can do all the combos basically with just his tongue and his cheek and one finger on like one button. And he can do all these crazy challenges. Dude, like when David said he played against Broly Legs online and Broly played Fuerte, he was like, well, I'm playing against Broly Legs, so I can uppercut, because if I miss my uppercut, he's not going to run, stop, fierce me. And sure enough, Broly Legs run, stop, fierce them with El Fuerte. And it's because Broly understands that, you know, the way combos work, there's a science to it. There's always a science to combos. And I have always said that if you give me anybody that you think has the worst execution possible, I will teach them uppercut FADCs, and I will get them to do it consistently, because I will teach it to them in a scientific way. I will teach it to them in a scientific way. So this is phase one of my combo discussion. The main thing that I wanted to get across is that combos, it's a science, it's a computer program. It is always going to be consistent. There's nothing magic about combos at all whatsoever. So it's not that you have to believe you can do the combo. It's that you have to know you can do the combo. Like, it's just in the game. Like, it's not like darts. It's not like bowling. It's not like shooting a basketball. It's not like throwing a pitch. It's not like swinging a baseball bat or a tennis racket. There's like, you can't quantify that. You know what I mean? Like, there's different strengths and the different, like, look, fighting games, like I said, speed is the only variable factor. But outside of that, you're hitting a button, which is either on or off, and you're moving a joystick or a control pad. Like, it's a science, it's a program. It can only do what you've told it to do, right? So you can do it. There's actually like 100% you are legitimately able to do that, unless, you know, you have, but like, I can't even talk about the disabilities, because like Broly Legs can play fighting games just fine. Dude, there's a guy who won a tournament match in Europe and he's blind. He won a match in the tournament and he's blind. You know, like, that's one of the beautiful things about video games, right? Is that they are a program so that you can kind of do things consistently. So yeah, so you learned a Zangief trial that you couldn't do by doing a negative edge super. Yeah, basically. A Skinner box. What is a Skinner box, Silent Shadow? But in any case, that's the first half of it. The second half that I want to talk about combos, and this is probably the more difficult part of the combos, and I definitely talked about this in a previous soapbox rant before, is that dropping combos in matches a lot of the times actually doesn't come down to execution problems. It actually comes down to nerves and recall problems and fear. And there's a lot of things you can fix that. And to be honest with you, combos are, I had this weird analogy. Basically, if you want to think of combos, like, think of your brain as a giant library with just rows and rows of books. and like crazy, like a maze of books or something like that. And the combos are in one of those books. Every situation, every combo that you get is in one of those books. When you actually are playing in a match, you're like, the guy whiffed an uppercut. And you're like, oh crap, what was my combo? See, what you're running down this aisle, you're running down this row, you're like, was it this row? Shit! And then you run to the next row, it's like, it was this one, I think it was this one. You run down, you like, I think it was the third shelf, it was the fourth shelf, and it was in the, it's fourth row, page 167, and by then you've dropped your combo. You have dropped your combo, and you can't do the combo, because you're trying to recall it like that. When you're in training mode, you literally are sitting at the desk with the book in front of you. You're just looking at the book like, page 167. Yeah, this is the combo I do. This is the combo I do. No problem. It's really easy. It's really easy. And that's it. And that's it. So, of course, in training mode, you're going to do it perfectly every time, right? So that's why one of the things that I've always taught in training mode that's really important is if you want to practice stuff, actually dash back and forth and then try the combo, or like jump around and then uppercut them, knock them down, dash up, do immediate, like mix up your brain a little bit to see how quickly you can recall the combos. You could also use the 2MK bots that the really into MK guy, he's created a bunch of them for expressly that purpose, to grab those kind of things out there. But that's the thing, right? So what you're trying to do essentially is when you're playing an actual match, what you're actually trying to do is improve your recall in that giant library maze. So that basically whenever someone whiffs an uppercut, you're like, oh, it's on the left side, row 3, bookshelf 5, row 7, page 18. And you know exactly where to go to grab the combo that you need. And the only way you're going to do that is by repetition. That's the only way you're going to get into that state of mind to know what combo to do. And that goes for mix-ups, that goes for everything, right? So basically, if you see someone miss an uppercut and you do low forward drill, and you're like, God damn it, I need to do crush counter roundhouse, low forward drill. I want to remember to do crush counter, but you keep doing low forward drill. And then when you try to remember the crush counter one, you mess up. And then you're like, no, I lost the round because I dropped that combo. So the next time you whiff the uppercut, you just do low forward drill because you're happy with that, because you're not messing up, right? And if you can win that way, that's cool. But if you really are insistent about making sure that you're doing the right combo, mess up a bunch of times. Keep messing up. Keep messing up until it starts, because eventually what you're basically doing in that library is you're starting at the entrance and you're going, shoot, where was that combo? It was this, okay. And you run and you find it, and then you run all the way back. And then you're like, shoot, I need that combo again. Wait, at least I remember it was on this side. So you run to this side and you're like, oh, it was over here. And then you run back. But then every time you do that, the path is going to seem that much more familiar. And eventually you're just going to be able to recall that very, very quickly. And the more often that you do that, eventually you don't even really need to look up the book anymore. In fact, maybe you even just have the book sitting there on the table with you already at the entrance. Like, you just have it already. And you don't need the recall anymore. So even though you're missing it in actual matches, keep missing it. The more you miss it, the more you actually remember. And the more you remember, the less panic you have. Because if you see them with the uppercut and you know exactly what you're supposed to do, it's not going to be a problem. You're just going to be like, oh yeah, that's what I'm supposed to do this. And then it's going to be like it is in training mode. Right? The reason why you can do everything in training mode so easily, but not in an actual match, is because you're panicking when you're trying to recall it, because you don't remember which book it was in and what page it was on. And you have to go through this giant rigmarole to remember which combo that you want to do. So a lot of the times, in order to learn combos, it's really just about repetition and failing a bunch. Sako had the crazy Sako Kami combo in Street Fighter 4. When I first learned it, I kept trying it in matches and I kept missing it. But eventually I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep missing it, and eventually I'll start landing it, and I did. And it started to work that way. So that's actually really, really important to keep trying. And so a lot of the times people say they just can't remember the combos, and then basically force yourself into remembering it, right? So when you're playing a game, put it in your brain that that's the only combo that you're trying to land. So all you're trying to do is bait the opponent into uppercutting that whole entire game so you can practice that anti-uppercut combo. So focus your gameplay on just that. Focus your gameplay on just knocking them down through some simple combo and then going up and media attacking them 100% of the time. Media attack them every single time until they start doing a wake up EX uppercut. Then when you start baiting them into EX uppercutting, practice your anti-uppercut combo. And if you mess up, just keep trying to do that. You know, like you can focus your online learning on one thing, and basically what you're just trying to do is hammer in your recollection so that you can actually recall that combo very, very quickly. I remember that someone made an article about that, the mental stack in fighting games. Yes, I remember that article. And that is so much of fighting games is about the mental stack. I talked about that with the Zangief thing, right? You're going to put most of your mental stack onto anti-airing Zangief because Zangief jumping in on you results in a terrible, terrible situation, whereas walk-up SPD is harder to do because it takes a few frames to actually SPD, right? That's why, it was scarier when a guy when a character like Hugo in Third Strike could store the spinning pile driver. So you could actually do like 720, walk forward a great distance, and then hit punch, and the super would still come out. There was this giant buffer window. The reason why that's so much scarier is because now he did turn walk forward into one button into a one frame execution. The reason why it's difficult is that you can find the situations where he's hiding the 720. But in general, you would not fight a grappler by concentrating on the ground as much as you would on the air. And if you do start concentrating too much on the ground, that gives the grappler the chance to jump in on you, and then you're done, right? When we watched Snake Eyes versus Fudo in Top 8 at EVO, Fudo uppercutted Snake Eyes 99% of the time when Snake Eyes jumped. There was only one jump in that entire set that Fudo did not uppercut or anti-air with roundhouse. Only one in like 6 to 7 games. It was a long set. But he uppercutted every time because he kept his mental stack focused on that. Combos are the same way. Mix-ups are the same way. This is why I say I'm a volume player. One of the reasons why I'm bad at all these fighting games right now because I only play them once a week. Because I'm a repetition player. When I play, I learn new mix-ups, and then I don't play for a week, and the next time I come back, I've forgotten 80% of the mix-ups that I made up, or I've forgotten 80% of the tricks that I've learned. And so it's hard for me to keep them in mind. I have to relearn them again. And then so my learning process is basically and it's not very productive, to be honest with you. And but I acknowledge that. I know that's something that I have problems with. So, but honestly, repetition is always going to be very helpful to increase your recall. That's basically what to learn landing combos really is recall. Because you can do the combo just fine in training mode, but that's because you're already sitting at the book. When you plan to do a combo in training mode, you have the book sitting in front of you and you're ready to do it. What you'll actually see a lot of times when I'm practicing training mode, I switch between combos. Like I have like 3 combos that I want to practice, and I'll actually switch between them. Like I'll try one for like 5 minutes, and the next one for 5 minutes, and the next one for 5 minutes, and the next one for 5. I just keep looping between the combos. And that's because I want to force myself to forget what the previous combo was and then come back and try to recall it. And I keep doing that, and that actually helps me build up the muscle memory a lot. So that actually helps a lot. So, yeah, I dedicate one night per week for training, and it's not easy. It's not easy that way, and that's definitely... Dude, I mean, the reason why I was so good back in the days and I'm not good now is because, look, I talked about UCLA. I'm not going to lie. I ditch classes to stay and play Street Fighter every day. Like, God, there were so many classes that I would just be sitting in, 2-hour classes, and an hour through, I'd be like, man, fuck this, and I would leave and go to the arcade, or I would pretend to get a text on my pager. I would pretend I got a page back in the pager days. I'd be like, oh, shoot, emergency, and I would walk out of the room, and I would just be like, oh, God, I was falling asleep in class, there's no point staying in there, and I would go play a video game. You know, like, I mean, I played Street Fighter every day. I played people every day, and I am a repetition person, and, like, I had to that's how I learn. That's how I get good at fighting games. And the way that I'm learning fighting games right now is not conducive to that. So I am awful right now. I am really terrible at fighting games, and it hurts me. But whatever. That's just the way my life is now, and I have to accept it, right? And honestly, that's another thing too. Is like sometimes you just have to evaluate. Do I really have the time to dedicate getting good at fighting games? Probably not. So I can't really have that kind of expectation on myself. And I know a lot of people tell me that when I'm learning these fighting games. Like, James, you're too hard on yourself. But you know what? Like, God, I know I used to be so good. And I know what that feeling was like. And it kills me that I'm not there anymore. It kills me that I'm so terrible at fighting games. It really, really does. But, like, CVS1 was one of my best fighting games. And literally, I played CVS1 against my friends, like, every day. We would come home from work and we would just play for 4 hours every day. I random select. I played every character. I knew how every character played. I knew every option for every character. Constantly. In fact, the days that I was the best at fighting games was when me and my friends would just play random select because that forced me to learn every character. And I was super good. And now I don't do that at all. So every time I fight characters, I'm like, what does this character do? And I die. So, you know, man. It does take time. It takes time, and it makes me sad that I'm not like that anymore. So, was I a page quitter? Yes. Yes, Suburban Socrates, I was a page quitter. Do I want to talk a little bit why practicing combos is fun? I personally know that I can do it, but I don't want to practice because I think it'll be boring. Why are combos fun? They're not necessarily fun. I find them enjoyable. I like doing it because I like seeing myself succeed at it, and it's great. But there's a lot of people out there like David who just don't get any pleasure out of doing the same combo and over and over and over again. And that is something that being a musician does teach you, is that, you know, to be a good musician, I mean, just how to learn to play guitar, to change chords, is like the most basic thing, is one of the most the most fundamental things about guitar, but it's like the hardest thing to do. Like, how do you go from this chord to this chord in like half a second when you're playing blah 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 blah? Like, how do you, like, dude, like, I've tried to learn that, like, really simple. There's one song, there's the old song, that do-wah-diddy, dum-diddy-do. Like, I've heard that that's an easy song to learn because there's literally only 2 chords in that song. Dun 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 dun. Like, there's literally 2 chords. And so I sat there and tried to learn that on the guitar, and I couldn't do it. Like, it's literally just 2 hand positions, and I couldn't do it. But I just didn't dedicate enough time to it, right? So as a musician, you learn to learn these mundane things, and then once you start getting to play the music, it's awesome. It's like super fun, right? But like, fighting games are the same way. Just sitting there learning the combos, it can feel repetitive and boring and things like that. But, you know, it teaches you how to learn and how to practice. Because honestly, you're not going to get good at anything in the world without that kind of practice. Like, honestly, like, I can't name you a thing at all that you can get good at like that without having to do that. I mean, there's always that quote, or is it like, it takes like 1,000 hours for you to become a master at something, or 1,000 days or something like that. I forgot what it was, but that's basically the truth of anything, the truth of pretty much everything. But if you find doing combos boring and you don't want to sit down and learn, as I said in the first half, the most important thing is don't do it then. Practice up your strategy like David does. David can't do combos like I can, but I can barely beat David in most fighting games because the way that I play is not designed to fight the way David plays very well at all. Like, our play styles are very poorly matched. David is a bad matchup for me. Despite the fact that I have, like, honestly, when you watch us play, that's how all our matches go. David is really good at, like, keeping me out, mixing me up, and all that, but then I hit him and I kill him. Like, that's literally how all of our fighting game sessions go. And so, you know, that's just the thing. You don't have to learn the combos. You don't have to learn the combos. So if it's not something that you want to learn, then don't bother learning it. Up your strategy. You can find different ways to win. You can find the character that's not execution heavy. And then, of course, there's people like that who are like, yeah, but what if I like Viper and I want to play her, but I can't because she's execution heavy? What if I'm a Zangief? What if I love the way Zangief looks, but I like to rush down? It's the same thing with every situation. Not every character is going to be playable in every single way. So you have to just gear your choice to play whatever character suits your style. Right? So that's to me, that's not a valid excuse. I like Viper, but I hate execution. What do? Find a character that doesn't have execution. Sorry. I like Zangief, but I like to rush down, and Zangief can't really rush down. He's slow, and he takes a lot of hits. What do? Go find another character. That's the way it works. So, oh man. Most people forget that people like Daigo put in 8 hours a day. Dude, so there was some people... Look, I love Kane Blue River to death. I love Nico. I love you, Nico. I love you, Nico. But the one time that, he was complaining about Daigo and Justin just naturally being good at fighting games, it's just not true. Like you read Daigo's book, and it's like, how much effort did he put in there? And Justin always tells the story of how all he did was get bodied at Chinatown Fair for months. And eventually he trained super hard by going to the arcade when no one else was there in the daytime and played every single day and learned every character and learned all the combos. And he just practiced until he could get to the point that he could win. So that's oh, there wasn't really any angry part, Kraken. There really wasn't that any super angry parts. So, but like, basically, yeah, everyone's put in the work, man. And it looks like guys like Tokido and Justin and Punk are magic. But man, like Punk, Wolfcrone, those guys, how many online matches do you think those guys played before they first started showing up to tournaments? How many online matches? Shitty matches. Bad connections. And they probably didn't even complain that much. You know what I mean? They probably just played and eventually they're at the level that they're at. But we didn't see the hours. Yeah, he's 18 years old, so you feel like he's like some Wunderkind or something like that. But like, he's put in a shit ton of hours in there, man. Yeah, I mean, Guile, dude, Daigo's got his Evil Ryu. Do you remember his Evil Ryu? He lost to John Choi at EVO. He switched from Ryu to Evil Ryu, and at EVO, John Choi's regular Ryu eliminated Daigo from the tournament in Street Fighter 4. And everyone was like, ha, Daigo is washed up. And then eventually his Evil Ryu became super good. But, Fighter Pack 2 for Injustice. I'll talk about that another time. This is not the time nor place for that at this point. So, yeah, see, Punk has been playing since like age 12 or something like that. So he's been playing for 6 years. Right? I mean, that's not a small amount of time. That's a pretty significant amount of time. So, yeah. I just tell you, man. Like, everything is going to take practice. But, again, you don't have to practice the things that you don't like to be good at fighting games. If you don't have the mechanics in there, just learn the strategy. Don't think of not having the mechanics as a barrier to understanding the strategy of the fighting game. Going back to the beginning of this whole entire thing, it's really, 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 really important to understand that. If you can't do the execution of something, that should not convince you that you are unable to play the game. Playing the game at any capacity is playing the game. Just like Day9 said. Just like he said. If you're playing the game, you're playing the game. If there's 10 things you suck at, but 3 things that you're good at, you're playing the game. And that's the way that you have to consider. If your execution is not good, you'll learn something else. You'll gain a strength to make up for it, right? I mean, like, not to be morbid or anything. You see, like, a 3-legged dog out there, and they're running around, like, no problem. Like, he's like, I don't have a leg here. I'm just going to learn to balance this way. And I'm going to run around and be this super happy dog. And I'm great. Like, they have a limitation, but they learn to compensate for it and live a practically normal life. You know, and not to be, like, weird philosophical or something like that, but that's exactly how it works in fighting games. You can be successful in fighting games without necessarily having the best execution or the mechanical prowess in there. You could be one of the best at Street Fighter without necessarily having the strategy there. You could be an execution monster. Like I said, Gamble Seth Punko made it to top 8 at EVO and double perfected Daigo on stage, right? Before he really learned the strategy aspect of the fighting game. Like, you can have success in various ways in fighting games, unless the fighting game is not designed properly. And that's where I think Street Fighter V has a lot of weaknesses, is that Street Fighter V is not designed in a way that it rewards lots of different styles. And that is one of the biggest weaknesses of that game. If someone wants to learn the strategy, how should they do it? Like you said, combos are easier to practice. Strategy is studying, watching your replays again, watching your matches again, talking to people, asking them what you were doing wrong, what were they taking advantage of, do you notice any patterns, understanding psychology, understanding why people do things the way they do. Understanding why when you hit them with a wake-up super that there is a huge, much larger chance they're going to try to hit you with a super. Like things like that. Like you just have to understand psychology. You got to study why people do things, the things that they do, especially yourself, right? Especially yourself. That's the way to practice strategy, is understanding the psychology of why people do the things that they do. Like I said, I used to play fighting games a long time ago, back in the hyper fighting days, because I was just like, oh, this is just what you do. This is a setup. This is just a cool thing, right? And I didn't realize how much improvisation was going on during a fighting game match. When I first played fighting games, I just did things because they worked, and I knew that this was a trick. Like, me and my brother were obsessed with that. We used to hit each other with stuff and be like, I didn't know that was a trick. That's unfair. And it was like, at some point in time, you realize you just make up half of this shit as you go along. And a lot of it is improvising based off of what you realize human reaction was. I always tell the story of, there was a match that I was playing against somebody that I did Zangief Lariat. This was in vanilla Street Fighter 4. I did Zangief Lariat against this Balrog. And he was scared because Zangief Lariat was really broken at the time. And he just crouch blocked there until my Lariat finished. And I had never done this before, but then I was like, wait, he didn't do anything when I Lariated. Okay, well, when I need to win, I'm going to Lariat next to him, and then at the last second, slide towards him and ultra him. And I did exactly that. And it wasn't a trick that I knew. It was just something I improvised on the spot. And that's where a lot of fighting games comes into. You just have to get good at recognizing patterns and people's tendencies and understanding why people do things that they do. That's how you build strategy in a lot of ways. And honestly, Noob Zero, like you're saying, you need to work on reactions. Some people are good at reactions. Some people are terrible at reactions. And they're going to have equal success. Because they're just going, whatever a weakness is, you are going to strengthen your other strengths to make it that much better. Like I said, if you're that three-legged dog, if you're missing one leg, you're going to strengthen the other three legs so that you can balance. Whatever is a weakness, your strengths, you can make up for a lot of those weaknesses by just being stronger in those areas. So if your reactions suck, then you have to worry about improving your anticipation and stuff like that, right? So this is always that's just the nature of the game. That's just the nature of the game. Some people are going to be able to thrive on reactions. K-Brad, for example, his reactions are ridiculous. Everyone talks about how his reactions are the best. And he's largely won based off of that. Most of his victories are based off of that reaction strength, and he's geared his gameplay to complement that reaction strategy. So he's able to succeed through reactions. Whereas other people like Justin, he always says he has godlike reactions, and he gets mad at me because I tell him he doesn't. But he always like, my reactions are godlike. I'm like, no, your anticipation is ridiculous. You know what everybody's going to do, so you can react to it super fast because you already know it's coming. Your reactions are not raw, Justin. And he gets so mad at me, but I still 100% believe that his reactions are because he has such good anticipation, that he's so good at predicting what people are going to do, that when he sees it, of course that's what's happening and he can react to it. And so, like, people are going to play differently to their strengths. And that's just what fighting games come down to do. The problem with fighting games, a lot of people do this, and back to this execution versus mechanics versus strategy, is that people think that there's one recipe to win, and there's just not. There's not one recipe to win. You can work on your strengths. You can get good at fighting games by strengthening your strengths and doing the best you can with some of your weaknesses. And that's just the way it is. So again, to tie this whole thing back together again, if you're worried about mechanics, and if you're like, man, I hate execution because it prevents me from playing the game, like, that is the wrong way to think about it. Mechanics is just one aspect of the game. And if you're not strong in mechanics, learn how to play the strategy better. Get better at the strategy. And maybe you'll learn mechanics on the way. But if your mechanics are not good, don't sweat it. Play the game. Keep playing the game without your mechanics. If you're playing if you're using Rufus, and you die kick, and you must do light kick fierce into spinny twirl because that's what Justin does, but you can't do one frame links, then fuck that combo. Dive kick, low short, jab, spin. It's the same result. You get the same mix-up afterwards. Do that instead. Yeah, there's less damage, but whatever. Don't worry about it right now. The problem, one of the biggest problems with all the streaming, the streaming culture of fighting games now is that for some reason in video games, everyone wants to do what the top players do right away. It's like I said, it's weird because in regular sports you see Jordan dunk and you're not going to be like, I want to do that tomorrow. But for some reason when you see Justin do a combo, you're like, I have to learn how to do that too. It's like maybe you're not good enough to do that right away. Take some time to practice or just don't do it at all. Like, just find other ways to do it. So like I said, in Tekken, I have a combo that on counter hit towards one, there's a max damage combo. I can't do it. I don't have my Tekken mechanics down pat. So I'm just going to do an easier combo. I don't care. I don't care that I'm leaving damage on the table. I really honestly don't. There's nothing in my brain that's like, God, James, if only you knew how to do that. No, I don't care. Like, I'm just going to keep playing the way... To me, I'm just going to pretend that doesn't exist, and this is how much damage I can realistically do. Because it is how much damage I can realistically do. So I'm going to play with that in mind, and I'm just going to learn how to make up for it by getting better at other parts of the game. Maybe eventually I'll learn that combo, because I like practicing combos, but maybe I won't. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Don't think of anything as a roadblock to any other part of the game. Every part of the game is equally valid and important. So... Alright, can't run before you walk. Yep. Basically is what it is. Alright, so that's what I have for today. Again, sorry, apologies that it wasn't as angry of a rant as the past ones. Didn't have any reason to get as angry this time. So, one thing about reactions is how committed you are to the action you will do as an answer to the scenario you expect. The more committed to an uppercut as an expectation of a jump scenario, the better success rate you'll have. Yes! People have talked about this. One of the reasons why Punk hasn't been winning as much is people have learned how to fight him now. People understand him, that he walks backwards to get you to whiff a button so that he can fierce you into whiff punish. When Punk was dominating earlier in the year, everyone marveled at how good his whiff punish was. Now if you watch a lot of matches, you'll actually see Punk walk backwards and then just whiff a fierce, and the guy didn't do anything. So you're starting to realize now that people are catching on, like when they see Punk walk backwards, don't hit a button. And that's why Punk has had to learn to do the double shimmy, where he walks backwards, forwards, or he has to start adding throws into his games to get people to actually hit buttons. But again, right there, it looked like Punk had the greatest reactions in the world, but it actually was just him in anticipation, so that he had the proper reactions. And then Vanisher says, the difference is that in Tekken, you don't get punished by using a subpar combo. In Street Fighter 4, you can't get easy combos out of certain confirms, and you get punished by missing them because it has something unsafe in it. Yeah, in a way, but at the same time, I don't necessarily agree, because in Tekken, a lot of the times the same thing can happen. A lot of the same things can happen, that sometimes you just don't get the proper, like, setup situation, right? Like, I get better setup situations off of Shining Wizard than I do for an anti-air spinning pile driver thing, but I can't land it, so I'm going with the weaker combo. I'm going with a weaker ender. Not only am I doing weaker damage, but I'm getting a weaker ender. I don't get the same kind of setups I get off of it, right? It's the same kind of situation. You can't optimize everything. If you feel like you can optimize your mechanics, that's just like saying that you should be able to optimize your strategy, optimize your reactions, optimize your defense, optimize your offense. Like, all of those things are things that you have to work on. It's just, for some reason, execution that people think that they deserve to be able to be good at with no practice. And it's because Street Fighter 4 had stupid one-frame links in the game. And before the end of Street Fighter 4, one-frame link complaints were not as strong as until the end. And then at the end of Street Fighter 4, by the time it got to AE 2012, all of a sudden there was just this big old complaint about execution. I hate execution. One-frame links, FADCs are stupid. Like, even during vanilla, no one complained about having to do FADCs as much as they did towards the end. They just basically needed an excuse on why they couldn't win anymore, and so execution was the easiest one, because it's the one that you feel like people have to waste most of the time on. It's the easiest one to poo-poo, basically. Oh, I'm not going to spend I'm not going to waste 100 hours learning this combo, so screw execution. You know what I mean? Like, as opposed to saying, my brain isn't smart enough to be able to beat your strategy, you know? Like, you're not going to say that. You're going to find the one that's the easiest to blame that makes you feel the best about yourself. Execution became it, and now there's this big fight against execution, and now we have Street Fighter V. This is your fault. This is your fault out there that we have this kind of execution in Street Fighter V, okay? I'm just, honestly, like, okay, this is my angry rant. Stop blaming execution. And in fact, when Street Fighter V came out, before it came out, and I found out they made execution easier, I said, what excuse are people going to come up with now to blame why they can't win? Now that execution is not there. And everybody was like, dang, James, what the hell? And now everyone has all these other complaints. It's either command grabs are stupid, it's crush counters are stupid, it's shimmies are stupid, there's just, the game is dumb. Like, there's all these, it's always going to be a new excuse. And it's not execution. And now everyone's like, I want more, why does this game have execution? Like, it's just, whatever is most convenient for you to hate on is the reason why you're not winning. And that's why my quote is, to be good at fighting games requires you to look deep within yourself. Because the reason why you're not good at fighting games is because you are not good at fighting games. And you need to fix something. You need to fix something. And that is why fighting games are one of the hardest things to learn. And that's a 1v1 thing. That's a 1v1 thing. Team games are a lot easier because you can rely on teammates that can carry you, you can carry them, etc., etc. But a 1v1, man, it's all you. It's all you in this kind of situation. So, all right. I'm done. Okay, I'm done for the day. Unless anybody has any last second questions for anyone right now. Dude, let me tell you something. The 1v1 Onic or Delvionic or Davionic. I'm ass at Street Fighter V right now too. I'm so terrible at that game. Problem is right now I'm interested in learning other games. I want to be less ass at Tekken and Injustice and Guilty Gear, so I've been focusing on those games a lot more. Will I try Absolver? I don't know. I don't play Steam games, honestly. I just don't. People have bought me Steam games before. I've never played them. It's really sad. Like, I literally have like 5 Steam games that I need to play, and I haven't played. I've bought a bunch of them on Steam sales, and I just don't play them because I never want to play games on my computer. I never sit in front of a computer and go like, I want to play video games. If I sit in front of a console, I feel more comfortable about it. I don't know why. I'm just such a programmed console gamer. I need repetition in playing PC games before I can recall PC games faster. So, yeah, please yell at Capcom to give us EXV reversals. Dude, there's so many things that you could do. There's just like 90 things that you can do to the game, honestly. There's a lot of different ways to fix it. So do fighting games take more skill than, let's say, MOBAs? From a physical finger dexterity execution, probably, but still, like, if you think about combos as timing, no. Because in MOBAs, one of the key strategies in that game is the last kill, right? You want to have the last kill against minions so that you gain more experience than if your minion kills the minion, right? So you go around and learning, and that's actually kind of timing. Like, you actually see all those things, you know in a position, okay, this one's almost dead, walk over here, last kill, over there, last kill. So, like, it's kind of the same thing in a different way. It's just the result, it looks different and feels different. But it's still learning on a time. When I was playing League of Legends the first time, people would tell me that, and I would miss my last kill on everything. I would be like, okay, hit! Still alive, minion kills it. I'm like, God damn it! Like, it's kind of similar. It's not actually entirely different. So there is a different kind of execution skill required in those games. Is it as execution heavy as fighting games? No. But like I said, that's not a problem. As long as your game is built around the knowledge of what your execution level is, that's fine. As I said, Street Fighter V is a game that requires higher execution built with a low execution. Street Fighter V needs to be adjusted as a game to suit lower execution, or it has to have increased execution. It's one of those two options there. It's one of those. Neither of them are correct. Both of them are correct. I should say neither of them are wrong. Both of them are correct. Not one of them is a more correct answer than the other. That's what I should say. They are both correct. One of those two things has to happen. As long as you build your game around that knowledge, then it's fine. It doesn't matter what the execution level is. But the fact is, Street Fighter V is a game built around higher execution, put in with low execution. And so that's why the game kind of suffers in a way. Team games are also nice because you can cooperate with your friends. Yes. Team mode in Dragon Ball FighterZ is going to be a big thing if that actually happens. If you have one good person carrying two other good people, yeah, absolutely, it's going to be great. You mentioned in your tweet how knowledge correlates to better execution. I don't think you mentioned that during stream. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're actually right, NB Silent Shadow. I kind of skipped that. The one thing that I wanted to talk about is knowledge. A lot of the time, the reason why I'm good at execution, okay, thank you, NB Silent Shadow, because this is actually really important. I didn't want to miss this. I didn't want to miss this part. The reason why I'm good at execution, one is because I did play piano, so I understand. I have a thrill of sitting here doing the same thing over and over and over again until I get better at it. That's kind of part of it. But the main reason why I'm good at execution is because I study game systems, and I have an understanding of why things work. So, and because I've also been doing combos forever, and I've always had a mind for them, so now I understand these kind of things. So a lot of the times when I see a combo is not working, I'm like, okay, why wouldn't this work? Well, let me think about this here. So a great example was an Elizabeth combo in P4 Arena, Persona 4 Arena. So at one point in time, I had this series called Execution Corner, which I'd love to bring back, by the way. Where people couldn't do combos, and they would just give me the combo, and I would just try to learn how to do it, even in games that I didn't know how to play. So I was doing this in Persona 4 Arena. I was actually trying to learn Elizabeth combos, and I never touched Elizabeth before in my entire life. There was this combo where you had to do a tornado, and then you followed up with something and kept hitting them. And it was really weird, but because you can guide the tornado around a little bit. So what I would do was I would test it, and then I would learn all this. Like, I would try to do this combo, and it wouldn't work. And like after the tornado was done, I would move down, and I couldn't hit them. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why wouldn't this work? Well, okay, so how does this move work? This move, after it's done spinning, falls to the ground, and it recovers in the ground. And that entire time that it's falling is recovery, okay? So that means in order to make this combo work, I need to recover quicker. I can guide this tornado. Once I start hitting with the tornado, I'll start moving my tornado down. And sure enough, the guy would keep falling on me and comboing. So when they bounced and then I touched the floor, I recovered much faster and I was able to get the link. So the reason why I was able to do the combo wasn't because I just magically learned the timing and I was like, bruh, I have the touch. My hands are gods, and my fingers are like magical tools that can pleasure you. You know, like, I mean, no, it wasn't like that. It was because I studied the move. I tried to figure out why it was working and why it wouldn't work, right? Another example, Chip, one of his trial combos where you go off the wall and you dive down, and then you were supposed to juggle with the standing medium punch afterwards, right? You're supposed to juggle with the standing medium punch after the wall dive. But sometimes it wouldn't work. Sometimes you would dive down, and I would hit slash as fast as I could, and I just couldn't hit it. I just couldn't hit it at all. And I was like, why is this? So I just stopped the entire combo, and I just jumped with Chip, and I dove off the wall, and I just kept doing that at different heights. And what I realized is that there is a height when you jump off the wall and do the dive move, that if you're too low to the ground and you go off the wall and you hit the ground before you, quote, recover, you land with delay. But if you do it higher up and the move recovers while you're in the air, you land with no delay. And I was like, okay, so the whole goal of this combo, instead of trying to land wall dive into stand slash, became, how do I make sure when I cling to the wall, I am as high as possible? So I adjusted every other part of the combo to get me as high as possible, and all of a sudden dive into slash was super easy. But I only figured that out because I took the time to learn how the game worked. Whereas a lot of people, when they're trying that same chip trial, they're just going to be sitting there going, why isn't this working, and why is it sometimes it works? I can't get the timing right. Because I couldn't consistently do it, going back to what I said before, I said, you know what, there has to be a reason. It can't be this random. Because it's just, that's not how programs work. It can't be random like this. There has to be a rhyme or a reason for it, because combos are scientific. Combos are precise. Combos are exact. So I knew that there was a reason for it, so I went and looked for the reason, and when I found the reason, I was able to fix the combo. Not the part that I was failing, but I figured out why that was failing, and the reason why I was failing was because some other part of the combo I wasn't doing right, even though it kept comboing. And so since I figured out why it wasn't working, I was able to learn how to do the combo consistently. And that is just one of the main things. And again, combo systems. I understand, for example, like when you want to cancel low forward into super. I know that you cannot cancel the normal move after the active frames are done. You want to do low forward into super. A lot of people have trouble doing low forward into super. I can't do it, and they keep hitting the button late. But here's the thing, right? I know that the end of the active frame, I have to hit the button by then. So it's low forward super. So I know that there's a time limit of when I have to hit the button. So I don't even care about the motion. I just know that I have to hit the button at this particular time. So I know I have to squeeze in the super motion as fast as possible before that time. I memorize low forward button for super. Low forward button super. That's the timing. Ba, 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 ba. No matter what happens, I have to make sure I do the super motion in that time. And what a lot of people don't realize is they're like, okay, I want to do it a little bit more carefully, so I'm going to do low forward, super, low forward, super, low forward, super. But if they understand how cancel windows work, they would know that that would never work because they have to hit the button earlier. So you just understand game mechanics, and that helps your execution. Knowledge is power. The reason why I can do combos. And okay, here's another one. Tekken 7. I'm learning Tekken 7, right? I asked people, how do you do instant while running moves? How do you do instant while running moves? And someone said, forward, neutral, forward, forward button. I was like, what the fuck? All right, forward, for forward button. Didn't work. Forward, for forward button. It worked. Forward, for forward button. Didn't work. I was like, no, this is not the answer. Like, I literally, for a game that is 20 years old, was like, this is not the answer. And I went on Twitter and I was like, how do you do this? Can someone please tell me how you do instant while running? What is the scientific reason why it works? And all the Tekken experts were like, forward, neutral, forward, forward button. I was like, it doesn't make any sense. That doesn't do it. Someone, here, read this article. The article, read all the article. Forward, neutral, forward, forward button. I was like, no, none of this makes any sense. And I was like, watch. And I did a video where I did forward, forward, forward button. Forward, forward, forward button. And I got it 5 times in a row by doing forward, forward, forward. Like in a really slow timing. Like, I don't know why it took 20 years for people to not want to like try to figure out exactly why instant while running works. But the answer is you just have to tap forward 3 times and hit the button 1 to 2 frames after you hit forward. If you hit it at the same time, it doesn't work. Any later, it doesn't work. So you just have to learn how to plink that as best as you can. So on a hitbox, it's going to be mad easy. On a joystick, it's going to be a little bit tougher. But now that I know that, I can do it a lot more consistently. But again, the reason why I was able to think that for a 20-year-old game was that I just don't believe that it's random like that. I just don't believe that it's not consistent that way. I know there's a way to do it consistently, and so I have to figure out the reason for it. And I figured out the reason for it, and that was it. I figured it all out. So that's just the way it works. Like, if you want to learn how to do something, it's a program. Like, it helps that I'm a coder, so I kind of get this. Like, there's a problem that people think that computers are magical and shit just happens in computers. But if you know how computers work, if you know how coding works, you know that everything is going to happen the same way every single time given the exact same circumstance. Almost always, right? Like, it's weird, but that's kind of how it works, right? Like, for example, you can have a randomizer in a video game. Actually, there's no such thing as randomization. There's actually no way a computer can be random at all, at all. And I had an argument with one of my friends in high school about this. I was like, what are you talking about? There's random functions everywhere. And he's like, no, a computer cannot be random. A computer literally cannot be random, otherwise it's as smart as a human being. I'm like, what are you talking about? I type in this random function and it gives me a random number every time. He's like, no, that's not how it works. And it's true. There is no such thing as randomness in a computer. Like, literally no such thing. There has to be something that it goes off of, whether it uses the clock, whether it uses the date, whether it uses something. It's got to generate a random seed to get a random number and just hope that you do it at a different time, right? That's how random actually works in computers. There's literally no way a computer can be random. There's absolutely no way until it becomes cognizant, self-cognizant. Otherwise, a computer will never be random. So knowing that, every time I do something in a fighting game, I just know there's not a random chance that it won't work. Like the while running stuff, like the Elizabeth combo, like the chip combo. It's just not. The combo isn't going to fail because of randomness. There's something I don't know. And as soon as I learn it, I figure it. So when I started getting cat stance combos in the middle of things, I was like, why is this coming out? So I went to training mode and I figured out all the ways you can activate cat stance. And I figured out how that cat stance activated. I still get mad when it happens. I haven't prevented myself from doing it, but at least I know why it happens. I know why it happens. And so it just, everything about fighting games and video games is an exact science. That's why speed running works. That's why tool-assisted stuff works. That's why programmable controllers work. So knowledge is a key factor in how to do combos. If you spend your whole entire time doing that chip combo, and after the wall dive, you can never get the slash in there, but sometimes you can, you just got to think to yourself, it can't be that random. There has to be a way to make it consistent. Why doesn't it work? So for me, I was like, let me test the wall dive. I found out that it was height dependent, that the higher up you were, which was unintuitive to me, because you think to yourself, you want to land faster so you can slash sooner. But it actually turns out that you want to be higher up on the wall so that you recover in the air and land with no recovery. And as soon as I figured that out, I was able to do the combo super consistently because I adjusted the height at which I allowed myself to jump and cling to the wall. Knowledge, 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 knowledge will get you through combos every single time. Every single time. There's a scientific reason that I get mad. You know it isn't magic. Actually, you are right, Boats and Joes. There is a scientific reason. It's called genetics. Because my dad has a terrible temper, and I got it from him, damn it. I got it from him. Okay. Lamar, good point. There are skipped frames in older games that can make combos random. Yes, that is absolutely true. Unless there is something inherently put into a game that causes that to happen. Ryu, crouching light kick ×2, Renda Kara canceled into his fireball super, has a 50% chance of connecting and not connecting. Or it's like 33% chance based on when the frame was skipped, etc., etc. So yeah, there's definitely some randomness in it, and it's one of the things that makes ST kind of a beautiful game, but there's also a lot of intentionally programmed randomness. Damage is random, special move windows are random, etc., etc. That game was designed to be random. No fighting games are programmed like that anymore. So nowadays, there's very little randomness in the game. So, yeah, Drewer Falls, trust me, my temper can be fixed. I just use my genetics as a blame to make it easier, that's all. I am saltier than the Dead Sea. Yes. The Jimmy Sea is saltier than the Dead Sea. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Oh, man. But yeah, those things aren't truly random either because the frames are being skipped every regular interval. So, in fact, if you do the save state, like Madge did in his Guile combo video, it will be consistent 100% of the time. Like in the original Street Fighter 2, it was a program that there was 1 out of 256 times that you hit the button that it would just do a special move. That's how Guile could walk up flash kick randomly sometimes. That's why sometimes you would just walk up and Shoryuken out of nowhere. They did that to show you that these moves existed, so that you would try to find out the command inputs to actually do uppercuts and stuff. So there was a 1 in 256 chance that you would accidentally do these special moves. Well, when Madge was doing the combo video, he made some of the combos with those 1 in 256 chances. And by using save state, it would be consistent every single time. It would come out on that same frame every single time. Like, he literally would do a save state, record a combo, it didn't come out. He would shove the entire combo 1 frame later, play it, didn't happen. Shove the entire combo 1 frame later, played it, didn't happen. Shove the entire combo 1 frame later, played it, it happened. Okay, save that state, and you know what? Happens 100% of the time at that point in time. It's the way computers work, man. It's just the way that computers work. It's the way computers work, so. And sometimes randomness luck can make games beautiful. Yeah, absolutely, Ho Muffin, absolutely, because, like, I mean, that's the basis of Faust. Faust's entire gameplay was based on being as random as possible. Even the super where he tries to basically give you a rectal exam. You know, it's like, at first it was random where the angel was. But again, they can't truly do random, and what people found out was that there was a specific timing that you could hit a button and get it, the angel on the first one every single time. So instead of making it random, they put it into the human to do the cut switching, and then you had to, like, guess which one it was. And so they took away the random factor and put the guessing on the human. See, they found a way to make it truly random by taking the decision away from the computer and put it on the person. When Shinko threw the random items out on fireballs in UMBC 3, it wasn't actually random. Is every time you threw it, it started a brand new timer. And the timer was the same every single time. Shinko literally had a 1 frame link infinite combo by throwing the dizzying item over and over. Like, you could actually record the input, the dummy recording, to throw it at a specific timing, put enough space in there, put it on repeat, so it would repeat over and over again and throw the dizzying star every time, and she had an infinite combo. If you could time it 100% perfect, you can go dizzy, 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 until they were dead. Like, literally, that's just how computers work. And I have that benefit, but that's why I'm talking about this. That's why I have the dispelling the myth of combos. Combos are not magical. Combos are scientific. They're precise. They're exact. There's nothing about combos that are like, it just works sometimes and it doesn't other. And you know what? You're lucky. You're good at this combo, but that's because you just have the magic touch. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as the magic touch for combos. No such thing. I don't have good finger dexterity. I really don't. But I'm the clumsiest person in the world. But I can do combos because I believe in science. Because I understand how combos work. And so I study why combos work, and then I can figure it out from there. So thank you, NB Silent Shadow. Long segue, but I did want to get into that. Knowledge helps you with execution 100% of the time. If you know why things work, if you know how things work, guarantee you that will help you with combos. Marvel is full of that. Marvel is full of that. And I talked about it in an old episode, why super jumping neutral and super jumping diagonal can result in 2 different air combos and stuff like that. You know, lots of important things. Knowledge is super important. I have the benefit that I've been playing fighting games for 20 plus years, so I have a ton of knowledge built in there. But again, I have said I can teach anybody in the world, you know, as long as they're not like a baby or something like that. But maybe I could teach a baby how to uppercut FADC Ultra. Maybe I could probably teach my cat to do that one of these days. I'd be pretty sick if I could, to be honest with you. But like, anybody who's willing to sit down in front of a joystick and is cognizant, I will be able to teach how to do that. Uppercut FADC Ultra, and teach them how to do it consistently. I would be able to do that because I can tell you the science of how everything works. And I can find the ways to cheat it. Now, there is, for example, 1 frame links, which really there is no trick, and that's just about timing, unless you count plinking. That kind of execution is kind of, I'm not a fan of that execution. Like I said, I've never missed 1 frame links. I'm not a person who says put 1 frame links back into Street Fighter. I don't believe in that. 1 frame links, I don't like FRCs in Guilty Gear because they're kind of the same way, is that they're just an arbitrarily designed timing thing. And it's not, to me, like actual execution and understanding mechanics and manipulating mechanics and doing cool things off of that. It's literally just, this is the timing that you have to do. And to me, that's not particularly exciting, so I'm not a fan of that kind of execution. I'm more of a fan of like just being able to put it into your head to do standing medium kick into hand slap, FADC dash forward into kicks into hand slap and stuff like that. That stuff is kind of interesting to me. 1 frame links, those kind of like, you know what, arbitrary. I'll make this one 1 frame link just for the hell of it. not exciting to me. Not as exciting to me. So, but even still, people love it. Electric Wind Godfist, that's basically what that is. People love it. So, and then like I said, while running attacks in Tekken, it's in there. So there's a lot of that stuff that exists in a lot of fighting games, and people love it. So, and it's a point of pride when they can do it consistently. When you watch someone do while running Dragunov over overhead punch 3 times in a row, like, that's impressive if you know why it's so difficult to do. So it's just the way it works. So Jasmine would be better at fighting games than Nathan would, for sure. Nathan would be too lazy. Nathan would just like look at the joystick, play it, and then he'd just walk away. Like, he'd be like, no, screw this. So it happens with my feather toys. Like, I can play with my feather toy with Jasmine for like 10, 15 minutes. Nathan looks at it and goes, "Arr!" attacks it, and he's like, I'm bored, and he walks away. So yes, Mubat, you are right. I need to take a break. So in any case, interesting execution. Understanding what input sequence to do and why it works. Yes, that is absolutely the reason why execution is fun. So when you get good at Viper feints and stuff like that, nothing in the Viper feint was a one-frame link, but it was fun because it was fun knowing that you're canceling a heavy punch into a seismo, into a cancel, into another heavy punch, into an EX seismo, into instant jump, into burn kick. Like, there's no one-frame links in that, but it was just fun. Because you knew you were manipulating the game in a way that was, like, cool. You know what I mean? Like, so execution is there's a cool thing about it. And, like, the reason why, like, I've had so many episodes and I rant about this all the time dedicated to saying why execution is actually cool is because I really don't like the prevailing concept that everybody has that execution is a shitty thing and that you need to get rid of it to make fighting games better because fighting games should be about the strategy. Then I saw that Day9 video and I was like, yes, please, you explained it so well. And so I had to just show that video. I had to show that video to everybody. So miscanceling. That's the only reason why I learned Johnny. As soon as they told me that's what you had to do with Johnny was to miscancel everything, that's why I played him. I was like, I just want to miscancel because this shit is fun. So that's why I played Johnny. Someone told me that you had to miscancel with him, and I was like, that's the sickest thing ever. So I learned him. That was it. That's here. Yeah, actually, I can link you that video. No problem. Let me see if I can get the link again. I closed the window. Let's see here. Tweets and replies. Missed cancel. Everything in Soul Calibur is basically a missed cancel. Wow, I missed out on that game then for sure. Where's my tweets? Hey Sean, I want to do something on this video. Yes, here we are. Okay.
What we are about to embark upon is a rant in...
Thank you, Sean. Here you go. There's the video right there. So definitely watch that video. So, alright, and again, guys, you see in the chat right over here, if you really want to, please join the Chen Dynasty Discord so you can give me topic suggestions for future Uncensored episodes. You also keep track of when I stream, because I try to post on there every single time when a stream is coming up. And also you can just talk to me, hang out. A lot of people talking about a lot of different games. They put up clips of like when I play Breath of the Wild and all these other funny games and the weird things that happen. So it's a nice, fun place to hang out and kick it. So come join the Chen Dynasty Discord right there. The Muba, I have the link above there, so you can scroll it. And definitely check that out and come hang out over there. Lots of cool people over there. It's actually a great environment so far. Lots of good discussions and everything like that. So it's a nice kind of a fun place to hang out and everything like that. So when's the Tetris Grandmaster combo streams? I have the board now. I'm working with Alex Kerr, who sold me the board, on how to get it set up so that I can hook it up to the TV. I will try to hook it up to the cabinet that I have over here, and I've got to figure out a way to stream it. If I have to stream it by putting a camera over my shoulder, and I have to just show you the screen that way, that's fine. It's Tetris. You don't need to see the crazy details. As long as you see the blocks, you've got it. So I will definitely be learning that. So You say you have limited time to get your execution up, like in like Guilty Gear. Then what does someone do? Play easier characters? No, actually learn easier combos. I've told everybody in Guilty Gear, I'm like, every time someone asks me, what should I do with this character? I'm like, this is the first combo that you should learn. Like, literally with Eno, I was like, standing kick, low slash, chemical up. Throw out the note, play the Eno mix-up game. Now, Eno has like 90 billion combos that are way more complex and do way more. Doesn't matter. Just do the basic combo and go. Just do it and go. And eventually what happens, the reason why I say that is because as you play the game, now it's like a regular video game. As you play the game with the stupider, weaker combo, you will learn mechanics. You will learn how to control the game better. A lot of times when I first learn a game, you always hear me talking about pace. You always hear me talk about rhythm. I don't understand the pace of this combo. I don't understand the rhythm of this game. I'm not combo, game. I don't understand the pace of this game. I don't understand the rhythm of the game. Because that's the most important thing to learn in a fighting game. Eventually you will learn it. You're going to donate during the TGM stream? All right, sounds good. But the whole thing about it is, oh, thank you, Socrates. Thank you. I really appreciate it. That's a great comment. But eventually you start learning the mechanics and things just start making sense in the game. And when things start making sense, trust me, the combos are going to come easier. But if you try to learn the combos right away, you are going to hurt yourself in the long run. And yes, an easier combos result in less damage, which could potentially bite you over the course of a round. But if that means you strengthen your strategy so you can still win, good. Then that means you're that much better. You're going to get that much better by doing weaker combos in a weird way. Because like I said, what if you're good at execution and not good at the strategy, right? Like, you can't just sit there and go like, well, you know what? If I'm not playing at the highest strategy, then, I mean, like, you could say that, but you would be wrong again. Because that's not what it all is. There's just so many different factors that go into a fighting game. Whether you win or lose is not going to just be from combo damage. Whether you win or lose is going to come from combo damage, reactions, it's going to come from anticipation, it's going to come from psychology, it's going to come from patience, it's going to come from the ability to how fast you can think, to strategy, to all these different things. There's so many factors in there that if you're going to only blame lesser damage for your combos as the reason why you lost, you're not going to grow. There's so many things to work on in a fighting game, and if there's so many factors that you can improve on, not just combo damage. So never look at it that way. Don't think of it that way. That's why, like I said, for the longest time, I have a king combo that I won't do in Tekken because I can't do it, and it's less damage. But there's no point in my brain where I was like, man, if I knew that better combo, I would have won. Because I know what my limitation is, and I'm playing around that limitation. And I've accepted that. And I'm not going to let that hinder me. That is not going to be something that's going to result me in not wanting to keep playing the game because I can't do this max damage combo. You're going to learn so much. You're going to learn so much playing a game if you can win while using less max damage combos. You're going to learn so much. You're going to gain so much strength in so many other areas. And if you say to yourself, I don't want to play this anymore because I can't do max damage combos, you are robbing yourself of a lifetime of amazing fighting game fun. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say about that. So, except for Hokuto no Ken. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, Hokuto no Ken is a different beast altogether, okay? Oh, man. Am I going to be playing MVCI? Fuck yeah, I'm going to be playing that game. And you know what? I don't even want to play it against people. I just want to stream training mode. Because, God, it looks like the combos that you can do in that game are going to be so sick. Oh, my God. Like, I saw that combo where, like, Jeddah knocked you to the ground, and then he threw a sickle, and then he OTG'd you into the sickle, and then he kept doing it. I was like, oh, like, I'm, like, seriously, like salivating, like, at looking at the combo potential in that game. You don't understand how, oh, God, like, I've always said that if I ever got trapped on an island with only one fighting game that I could play by myself for the rest of my life, without question, I would pick Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Because I would never run out of things to do in training mode. I would never run out of things to do in training mode. And MVCI looks like it's going to continue in that trend because goddamn, the combos looking at the game look like just like the most ridiculous thing. So I totally want to watch that. I totally want to just training mode that game. Like that's going to be my one-player version of Marvel. I'm just going to be sitting in training mode all day. Because I was just playing Injustice like a couple of nights ago, literally just doing training mode for like 2-3 hours at night before I went to sleep. I love training mode. That's just how I am. So, God, you're going to, like, whenever I training mode Marvel, I might not even talk to the stream. I just might have it on and just be trying combos all day. It's just all I might be doing. And you guys could just watch me dick around in training mode for hours on end. So, it's so good. It's so good. God, right? UMVC training mode? Oh, it's so, dude, all these guys are in training mode right now, dude. Oh, I can't wait for Marvel training mode because this game, it looks like they just said whatever works, works. We have hit stun deterioration. We're fine. Do whatever the hell you want. Any move that hits low enough, OTGs. Whatever. Hit OTGs. You know what? They can't roll from the OTGs. Screw them. Hey, this Power Stone gives you infinite wall bounces. Whatever. Here, have infinite wall bounces. Like, Jesus Christ, there's going to be so many options in that game. I'm sorry, like, I know a lot of people are mad about that game, but I'm so excited for that game because I just want to do all the training stuff so much, dude. I'm so excited for that. Any case, all right, it's 7:12. There is no Wednesday night fights tonight, by the way, so later on tonight, I'm probably going to play some Splatoon. So if you guys want to join in and watch me play some Splatoon, I'll probably start that at around 9 or 10 o'clock Pacific time. So it's going to be late for a lot of the East Coast players. I apologize about that. Tomorrow, I'll be trying to do the Guilty Gear lobby. Friday, I'll see if I can do Tekken. I might have to skip it again because I'm not sure if I'm traveling this weekend. Not for commentary or anything, but just for my own purposes, just for fun. So, but tonight, I hopefully will get to do some Splatoon later tonight, so... Do I know which game had Street Fighter training mode first? Street Fighter Alpha 1. Street Fighter Alpha 1 had the first training mode. Because when they got it, I was the happiest person in the world. There was no options in it. It was always auto block. It was like always like recoverable super. Like there's literally no options. You couldn't make the dummy crouch. Couldn't make them stand. You couldn't like. There's like nothing. There's like literally no options in it. And it was the greatest thing in the world for me. It was my favorite invention in fighting games ever. I loved it so much. I loved it so much. I loved it so much. So happy about that. I've never done a stream where I broke down and tried to explain Splatoon because I don't think I'm qualified to. I don't think I'm good enough at the game to actually say that how to play Splatoon. Unless you're talking about the most basic level for Turf Wars, I could absolutely do that. But outside of that, I'm ass at the game because I'm terrible at first-person shooters and third-person shooters. So I'm just playing it for fun. I don't consider myself an expert, to be honest with you. So yeah, I've only streamed Splatoon 2 once so far, so I definitely want to do it more. So, any case, all right. I guess I will talk to you guys later. Again, if you guys do appreciate the content here, if you like the Uncensored stuff, people have been telling me that they really enjoy this content here. They like listening to me ramble about fighting games without even playing anything for like 3 hours, but apparently people really like that. But if you like that, you know, please feel free to subscribe. If with your Twitch, if you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe for free and it lasts a month. You have to renew it, but that's the good thing because that means you can renew it for anybody you want. So this month it could be for me, next month you could do it for Flo, next month afterwards you could do it for Daigo the Beast channel, etc., etc. Or you can just subscribe to me regularly, or if you want, you can donate. There's donate links at the bottom. There's donate links under the screen and everything. You can bits, all that kind of stuff like that. All of that would be appreciated and helps me keep doing this, helps me keep streaming this content and stuff like that. Last thing I usually do ask, though, is that, you know, I only ran one ad during this entire thing. If you guys are willing to stick around for just a little bit longer, once the show is done, I'm just going to run 3 minutes of ads at the end. If you stay there and get ads, that helps me with some esports pennies. So if you guys could turn off ad blockers for just that period of time, would be much appreciated. And then, so like I said, I'll end the stream, go to the title screen, run the ads, and that's it. So, All right, I will talk to you guys later, and have a good night. I will be trying to play Splatoon later on tonight, and remember the wise words, everybody. Suck my nuts, assholes, and I will see you guys later. Peace out.